Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. As with me, as always, is Ansgar Odinson.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
And welcome once again to In Time. We hope you guys are doing well on this special debate edition of the show as we cover the Democratic live debates. Now, I was talking to Ansgar about this. This is probably his favorite thing to do on In Time.
And if you haven't noticed, Nick already had to start drinking just to be able to cover this.
Well, and of course, one of the things we were talking about is how the next election cycle, if Trump wins again, that's not the big concern. The big concern is if he wins again, the fact that we would ostensibly have to cover these debates on both the Democratic and Republican side, meaning we have to do twice as many as this cycle, which Ansgar was just
my appearance fee would be going up.
We will double what we are paying.
That's a deal.
So we are running a little late. So it looks like they've already started impeachment discussion. So that was early. But can we know? So what is it precisely? What do you guys think we can expect today, other than at least some discussion on impeachment?
Well, good evening, by the way. Thanks for having me on. Hi.
Like I said, he's already started drinking, you know, it's just...
Yeah.
Impeachment, we're going to talk about healthcare. We're going to talk about foreign policy a lot because everybody's going to bring up the Ukraine disaster. I think a shorter list would be the stuff we're not going to talk about. We're probably not going to talk very much about LGBTQ equality, because they just had that equality town hall, so they're not going to touch on that. And I don't think that you'll see anything on actually, you know what? No, I'm going to take that back. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that that you won't see. I think they're going to try to touch on everything tonight, because with Warren and Biden are now basically neck and neck. So all the other candidates want a chance to attack them and show why they're not great. So I think that's going to be the focus tonight. So you're going to see stuff about gun control. You're going to see stuff about LGBTQ equality. I think it'll be off the list, but healthcare. You'll see stuff about probably Yang will find some way to get his UBI in there. Tulsi's going to talk about forever wars. So
I think police accountability won't be brought up,
yeah,
despite recent events. Hong Kong will not be brought up, despite recent events.
Yep.
Turkey will not be brought up.
Oh yeah, well, they already talked about it.
Damn it!
Yeah, they already talked about it. That just happened a second ago. I'm watching.
I couldn't hear it because you were talking.
Yeah, probably. But
damn it! Yeah. Well, I didn't hear it, so it didn't happen. So I wrote that down. Police accountability. What else is probably not going to get talked about? My drinking game for tonight is working families. Whenever you see working families, go ahead and take a little sippy sip.
All right. Well, since Biden is here, since Warren is here, I think we'll call the medics right now and just send somebody over there.
So how many gaffes do you think we're going to get out of Biden tonight?
Ooh, what's the over-under? What's the over-under on that?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to go 3 gaffes. That's my guess.
Yeah, probably.
I'm going to go 5. I'm going to go high. I think he's going to step in it today.
Yeah, creepy Uncle Joe doesn't... He shouldn't be in public anymore. Like, they just need to go ahead and not let him out.
I bet he kisses Cory Booker's neck tonight.
He kind of reminds me...
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of my grandpa when he kind of started to go. And I remember going out in the backyard and I found him pissing in my mom's backyard. It's like, oh, come on, grandpa, dude, come on. You know, like that's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Or he'll kiss the top of Cory Booker's bald head.
Yes.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Like a good smooch that we can hear on the microphone.
Yep.
Please let that happen.
I would love to see that.
Oh, all right. Well, I do apologize. I've been a little distracted. We had some difficulty getting up on the GDC. We are now up on the GDC. I do apologize to the GDC who came into us 5 minutes late. There was some kind of issue. I don't know what. It doesn't matter. We will blame
The issue
Steve
is,
McCrae.
as I said, you had to start drinking to be able to cover this, and
Yeah.
you know, the production
Oh yes,
value.
that's when I started. Yes, I started when we were going to cover this. Okay.
God.
So let's see. Because I was distracted, I did sort of forget to do all the introductions. So we have Prolib, who has extorted us for doubling his pay, which I am quite comfortable with.
Absolutely.
Don't worry, Prolib, we're already paying you about what you're worth. And then we have it's gonna be one of those nights. I think it was in the sort of in the green room. It
got spicy.
Ouch.
It got spicy.
It did. And then do you want to quickly tell us about your show and what you do?
Sure. So my channel is dedicated to going in depth on political issues in Star Trek, but mainly going in depth on political issues. Everything from abortion to immigration to tariffs. And then Mikey and I do the Prolib show 3 nights a week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about something political. We have some sort of political topic that we delve into. Lately, it's been a lot of impeachment stuff. We did a show, The Impeachment of Donald Trump Part 1, that started with the timeline of the Ukraine in 2013 and what's happened since. And then we did Part 2 that was kind of the rest of the stuff with Pompeo and Giuliani and everything. We did a show called Is Tulsi Gabbard a Trash Candidate? And the answer is yes.
I will fight you, sir.
Well, she's not a trash candidate if you hate everything the Democrats stand for. So if you're against everything the Democrats stand for, then she's great. We did a show on Andrew Yang's UBI. We did we do stuff all the time on political topics. So if you're into politics, we're the place to be.
God, why you gotta make everything so political?
Well, because I like politics.
Well, and thank God, because that's that's why you're here.
Well, thank you.
So, Mikey, how about you?
First of all, let me just say I get 10% of every dime that Prolib is extorting you for. Absolutely. So I'm sitting pretty right now. I'm high on the hog. I'm getting 10% of what this new rate that he's charging.
It's true.
I can't wait to sit back on my withers and just collect
checks in the mail.
Yes. What's up, everybody? I'm Mikey Famine. I'm a troublemaker. I co-host the Prolib show with Progressive Liberal. I stream, I yell, I curse, I drink. That me.
And he's been on our show way too few times. We're working on that.
I'm talking to Mr. McGinnis for the booking, because he's gotten all big time now. You can't even get a booking now. You just hit up Nick like, "Hey man, you want to hang out?" And he's like, Have you talked to our booking agent?
Have your people call our people?
Yeah,
Mr. McGinnis.
He literally told me, talk to so-and-so. He'll worry about booking you. I was like, oh.
I will say, I do want to say thank you to the community, because we're up to 370 subscribers now, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, you guys are
everybody. You guys are fantastic.
Woefully undersubbed.
Yes.
What's up with that? If y'all like them, then come sub us. Come on.
Well, no, listen, guys. If it's a choice between us and them, I'll say honestly, subscribe to us. But
sure,
if they're a decent third or fourth.
Right. Sure. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
No, but seriously, if you wanted to watch the channel far more, let's see, politically engaged and up to the minute on politics and well informed on politics, their channel is definitely the place to go, because I think we stay reasonably informed, but not near the way you guys do. Nowhere near.
I just want to point out that Tom Steyer just called Donald Trump a criminal. So
No.
that just happened.
Woo!
Oh,
Damn
good.
it, that's one drink.
It
mean, he
is
is,
a little.
just
It is a
so-
little. You're right too. This debate is being a little spicy there.
I told you.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I think I said that in the green room before we came in. But yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
going
yeah.
to be the spiciest debate so far. You're going to see a lot more attacks, a lot more aggressiveness in this.
Well,
one.
I
Because
don't.
we're running out of time, right?
Well,
Yeah.
let me interrupt real quick. So we dropped the link on the GDC to the debate. I think we should try to get someone to drop the link unless it's in the description on
correct.
In Time.
Yes.
So we are using the CNN debate. We cannot air it. Well, on the GDC we don't mind because they're the ones who get deplatformed, not us. But on our own stream, we were a little hesitant to air the CNN. So we what we can do is, or what we will be doing is, we have cut the latency down as much as we can. So hopefully there will be very little delay between what actually happens and what you see our commentary on it. We super chats on the GDC and on In Time will go to us. I'm monitoring the GDC, which means actually there's like a 30% chance that your super chat may not make it through because. Yeah, alcohol. What can I say? Ansgar is monitoring them on In Time. Remember to like and sub, please, to both channels. But also from the GDC, if you want to come over to In Time there too. But we're going to be having a good discussion on both channels. Yang is now up, and so I if I say Yang 3 times, I summon our producer.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to, yeah. Another thing I want to talk about, there was a warning put out today, I believe from the FBI, but you could fact check me on that, that they're getting signs that the disinformation stuff is starting. So
From the Russians, ostensibly.
well, it's not just the Russians, it's the Russians, but it's not just the Russians. Remember, it's also North Korea.
I'm not saying it's the Russians,
Iranians,
but it's the
the
Russians.
Saudis. Right.
Well, he's saying it's not the Russians. So the fact that we have somebody on our show
right.
saying it's not the Russians.
Well, I'm saying it's not just
Привет,
the
comrade.
Russians. I'm just saying that is starting. So I want everybody to question everything. Everything. Don't take anything that I say is truth. Don't take anything that anyone tells you is truth right now. Question everything. Make them cite their sources. Websites like Breitbart or Talking Points Memo or Mother Jones or The Hill, those, well, The Hill sometimes, but for the most part, those are not sources. They repost stuff. So right. So cite your sources. Don't cite people that repeat other people's real journalism and then twist it to form a narrative. Whether that narrative is to the right or to the left or the far right or the far left. Be careful and don't get fooled. People are trying to fool you. Everyone else who's not the United States wants to be the United States. And the only way you do that is by taking down the United States. There is a war for your mind. Don't lose it.
I don't think Canada wants to be the United States, but they are admittedly the exception.
Well, okay.
Joke's on them. I'm already stupid.
Sure.
Oh. All right,
But,
now I can't. Is there a way to get the? So I'm watching the live stream on CNN, but I can't get the closed captioning to work. And
I've got the closed captioning working on mine, but I have Sling, so it might be provided by Sling.
Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Like $30 a month. Like, it's not.
Oh yeah, but that's why
$30.
I use Plex, which is free.
Well, this is true.
That's why you ain't got no closed caption either.
Well,
I'm not using it right now. I'm on my computer. I should switch over. You know what? Okay, can we like accidentally mute Mikey?
I never do that.
Yeah. This is
my
actually
God,
why.
Mikey his whole laptop just crashed. How did he know that happened? If it crashed, it shut out, but he already knew. How did he know?
I'm sorry, Mike. I can't. I'm going through a tunnel.
I'm not saying it's the Russians, but it's the Russians.
Okay, we have a question in
Sure.
the live in the live. Is this mostly left leaning? Well, I don't know. I hope they don't mean the debate because
I mean,
the Democrat Party,
right?
If they mean the host of the show, yeah, it's you know, if we had I think if it was the Republican debates, we might have on more conservatives, but you know, I couldn't be
This is
happier
the
with
left's time to criticize its own, to be quite honest.
Right. And I think the nice thing about having me on here as a progressive liberal is that I won't lie to you like conservatives will. So there is that.
But he has just no bias. Anyone on the was
None.
asking about that. He's completely unbiased.
And then as far as I'm concerned, I'm not even political. I just love people. And I know the best way to take care of people is to have our politics go a certain way.
And
Okay.
I'm a registered nonpartisan. I'm not even a Democrat, though I do lean pretty deep left. So I'm not even, you know, these aren't even debates that are necessarily for me. I'm not even allowed to vote in the damn primaries. But I do want to see the Democrats not fall on their face again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was embarrassing last time. We had that discussion earlier, and that might be a worthwhile discussion. The difference between left and right versus conservative and liberal, because that was a discussion that we had on our earlier stream.
Sure.
And I think it's a worthwhile one.
Sure. So it's funny you bring this up. I read a thread on Twitter yesterday from just some guy. You know, it was just some person, a composer, I think he is. And he asserted that conservatism is the only political affiliation that has ever existed. And that
was this Saka?
No, it wasn't Saka. No.
It sounds like Saka. It really sounds like Saka.
I've had a conversation with Saka. That sounds like him.
Yes. His assertion was that it is laws for thee, but not for me. And that's all conservatism is. And it's the only thing that we've ever been fighting against, right? Because the rest of us want the law to apply to everybody like it does to us. Which is interesting. I don't agree. I think that it was that way. It's why I don't believe that monarchies are fascist, because the Enlightenment changed the nature of political thought. We had the Magna Carta before then. We had rudimentary democracy in ancient times, and republicanism, I suppose. Even some argue primitive communism existed in ancient Greece, which is a fun topic to discuss.
Too many olives.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that assertion, because the whole point of the Enlightenment, the whole point of what Thomas Jefferson was writing about in the Declaration of Independence, is that rights are inherent at birth, that all humans are equal the moment that they take their first breath. The moment that they're alive, they all have equality. The Declaration itself was edited 89 times by the colonies. 89 times, the document that Jefferson wrote. It's why Franklin refused to write it, because he knew that states like South Carolina were going to want to keep slavery. We're not going to want to put in language about slavery. And the original draft of the document addressed slavery, the international slave trade, I think is what Jefferson talked about. But even then, in the 1770s, late 1770s, there was this thinking that what we have had up to this point is not enough, and it's not good enough, and it's not a way that's going to move the world forward. George Washington himself said, don't have political parties, don't have political affiliations. Jefferson and Madison told him to fuck off. But
the Whigs will last forever.
Yeah, I think that conservatism did exist on its own until you could probably say the when the Magna Carta. When was the Magna Carta? 1200s?
I'm on
Something like that.
That sounds about right.
It's somewhere in there. And even before then, you had the Scottish, the lords of all the Scottish houses essentially appointed what's his face? The Bruce.
King John of England.
No. The Bruce.
William?
Was it William the Bruce? Am I saying that right?
I believe so, yeah.
And then, well, they elected him, essentially. It was an election. And then they appointed William, who Mel Gibson played.
Wallace?
William Wallace. They appointed him as the protector of Scotland, whatever the fuck that meant anyway. Scotland was barely even a thing, but they did. So that was some form of representative democracy, even though it wasn't called those things. Those things didn't really exist as a thought. Things were starting to change. And I think that the biggest difference between modern conservatism and modern liberalism is there's an old saying in politics that Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love. Republicans will follow whoever the leader is because that's what their beliefs boil down to, is that our leader is the most moral and has the most values and is our role model, and we all follow them, and they are the alpha, and the rest of us are subordinate.
They are divinely influenced, and Providence has chosen them.
Correct.
Well, I would say it's a little different there, because I know plenty of non-religious conservatives, but I would certainly say that there's a deep sort of theme among conservatives that the authority is to be, respected, and even when you rebel or you do something, even if righteously, against the authority, you still deserve to be punished. That's the fact. In fact, that's how you show that you have integrity, is that you're willing to accept the punishment for the rightful thing that you did.
Sure, and that punishment might just mean that you work a $7.50 an hour job, right? You're being punished. You are earning more than that, but you have to work that for a while because I had to.
Right.
It's the same thing that people say, well, we can't cancel all the student debt. I had to pay my student loans back. Fucking so?
No, you know what? I'm sick of people asking. Burger flippers asking for $15 an hour. You know how long it took me to get to $15 an hour?
Right.
They should suffer too.
Right.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a sense of, this is what you just have to go through. You have to pay your dues, kind of thing.
And no, we're supposed to be creating a better world for all of us. The generations behind us, things should be easier for the generations that follow.
But I'll be dead. Why do I care?
Greta Thunberg would like a word.
Fuck those humans.
Exactly.
I don't want them to have it better than me. That would deflate my ego.
Right. Absolutely. Well, then I'm not worth as much. Right.
I'm better than them.
And so when you attach your personal value to wealth, well, I'm worth more because I'm literally worth more.
Yeah.
Is a Jackson Pollock painting really better than, something a 12th grader draws who's really into art? I don't know, but I know that it's worth more.
I have a question, because there's something that's always confused me. And I have a lot of conservative friends and family even. Is this sort of anti-elitism culture that runs through, particularly the common conservative. So why is it that so many conservatives are so willing to defend the elite when it comes to money and wealth? And
go for it, Mikey.
It has to do with identity, and it has to do with the message that the conservatives are sending. So if they tell you, hey, if you look out for these corporations, eventually you're going to be the CEO of the corporation, and
Right.
then you're going to be the rich person. So doesn't it make more sense to look out for the rich people in the corporation, aka future you? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Come on,
It
that's
ties back to
you.
authority. Those people are in charge, and those people that are in charge agree with me morally or with my values somehow. And so
Yep.
therefore they're better. I mean, think about it. Donald Trump is the president of the Republicans and they all defend him. He's an elite fucking real estate mogul from New York City.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's the everyman and he fights.
He's not even a
What the fuck are you
conservative.
talking
He's
about?
just he's not even conservative. He's just
Right.
Trump.
Right. My wife just yelled out, plus he's a Democrat. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he invited the Clintons to his weddings. He has donated to. I mean, you know, it's a joke, but he's the one who's in charge right now, and so they'll defend him to their last breath because that's
Well, and he's not.
how they do it.
And he's not politically correct, even though, you know, he gets triggered by people making jokes and tries to sue comedians, you know. But
Right,
no,
exactly.
he's so anti-PC.
Right, he's
You can't-
anti-PC, but here's a video of him shooting Kathy Griffin.
Bruh, you can't look like Chester Cheeto and not expect the jokes to come in. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Well, I
The
mean,
jokes are
he
inbound.
literally tried to sue Bill Maher for making fun of him.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bounce off of something else that Mikey said too, which I think is absolutely correct. All politics are identity politics. All politics are identity politics. It's whatever you are, whatever you believe, whatever you think is right, is your identity. All politics are identity politics.
Well,
if they were,
I think there is a
wouldn't be
distinction
politics.
between politics along, you know, ideological lines and politics where they literally try to separate people by, you know,
like abortion.
No, not like abortion. I don't think because think about it. There are, first of all, there are more women who are you know, vehement you know, anti-abortionists than men. So it's not about abortion isn't men versus women. That's an idea versus a counter idea. What I'm talking about is when they what most people mean by identity politics is when people literally try to draw, you know, lines down between arbitrary characteristics and say this is one team and this is the other team.
Yeah, I think that all politics is identity politics. It's who
I
you
don't know that
identify
that's-
with. It's
Yeah, I don't know that that's. I don't think that's different. Like
I
that
think it's
is-
massively
like you just
different.
described politics.
No,
That
no,
is
there's a
politics.
difference between Mikey, me saying that you and me, let's say, are on this one side because you and I believe this thing. And Nick and Prolib are on the other side because they believe this other thing, and you know, we are politically interlocutors. There's a difference between that and me saying you have a different skin color, therefore you are on one side, and I have a different skin color, so I am on a different side of this political, you know, issue. I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think that that's helpful.
I still, it's the same thing because just
No,
on the
no,
same,
one
on
is
the
something
same-
you can change. It's an
Well,
idea.
no,
The
let's
other's your
let-
skin
let-
color.
let's let Mikey finish.
So just as easily as I can say, well, I'm black and I think XYZ. And if you don't agree with that, then you're not with me. There are white guys that say the exact same
Yes.
thing.
And that's shitty identity politics.
But that's not different than someone talking about abortion. Like you have to take the personal stake out of it. You have to talk about like, is it pro or anti, pro or con, an issue? And it's the same. It's literally the same. So whether it's
No.
abortion, whether it's race, whether it's policing, police accountability, it's the same.
No. Drawing a
Okay, I
line
missed
between
something.
ideas, right? We can change our ideas. Drawing a line between ideas is a very different thing between drawing a line between arbitrary characteristics we can't change. Because you are the color that you are my political opponent is not healthy. Because
But is identity necessarily static? Are you saying that identity is something that can't be changed?
if we're talking about what people mean when they say identity politics, when they're talking about a politics centered around arbitrary, unchangeable characteristics, things like being male, female, white, black, you know what I mean, whatever. That's what people mean when they talk about identity politics. Having a political, sure, you could classify all politics as identity politics because we all have an identity, but I think there's an important distinction to understand what people mean when they say identity politics, what their
Okay, so
intention
just so it's clear for me, tell me one thing that's politics that isn't identity politics. I'll do it that way. So why isn't that true?
Okay.
Because I hear what you're saying, but it still sounds like what I'm saying. So what is something that is politics that isn't identity politics?
Okay. If we're talking about a distinction, as I've said, what people mean when they say identity politics is politics around, characteristics that we have no control over, right?
Yeah, I got that.
Then something like, let's say, even police brutality would an issue around that would not be identity politics, because in that case, it is about people who have one ideas versus people who have another ideas. It wouldn't be about black or white or male or female or anything that is unchangeable.
But here's the thing: who does that directly affect?
The poor. Mostly.
Who's more poor?
Doesn't matter. It affects all poor people.
That's what I'm saying. Like it always leads back into that.
You can make it about that. It doesn't have to be about that. Here's the thing: when like I said, when a young man, a young white man crawling on his hands and knees gets begging for his life, gets gunned down by the police just as quickly as a young black man will, it shows that the difference isn't necessarily the color of our skin, but merely how many of one color person is thrust into that situation versus the other, usually along socioeconomic lines, not necessarily because of racism. So
but here's the radical part of what you just said. As many, I think more white people are actually gunned down by police officers than black people. But you also have to remember that black people are 13% of the population, and we barely lost.
Well, let me
you know what I'm saying?
Let me clarify.
Like it. So even if it's not identity politics, it kind of still is.
Oh, hold on. Let me clarify. What I'm saying is, I do believe that there are disproportionate a number of, mostly for historical reasons, disproportionate number of black people who are in far more impoverished conditions than white people. I am also saying, however, that what causes most of the problems, not all, there definitely can be a problem with racism depending on your area. Obviously, I've lived in some of those areas. But for the most part, if we're giving a blanket statement, would be poverty. Now, if you have a disproportionate amount of black people who are impoverished, that is something that will affect a disproportionate amount of black people. But that doesn't mean the solution has to be centered around black people, because it is affecting everyone, maybe one group of people more disproportionately, doesn't mean that your policies or even the way you talk about the problem has to be all about black versus white versus Latino versus whatever. It can literally be, let's identify the problem and fix it. You don't have to turn it into a racial divide.
I don't know that it's a divide. I think saying that black poverty is an issue, black people being abused by police officers as an issue, I don't think that's pitting white versus black. I think that's pitting injustice versus oppressed. You know what I'm saying? Like that's shitty people abusing people, and everyone should say this is wrong.
Where it becomes what people would call identity politics is when you talk about that at the exclusion of other people facing the same exact problem.
Why do I have to advocate for everyone?
Why not?
This is the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter thing. So as soon as I say I'm hosting a 5K walk run for breast cancer, and then a bunch of people show up and they say, "What about diabetes?" Okay, you can do a diabetes 5K, but this is my breast cancer 5K.
Well, hold on. If you organize a march to try and end police brutality against specifically white people, you know there's going to be some outrage.
Because it's not an issue.
It is an issue.
Not
Are you
like
kidding
it is
me?
against black folks.
It's not. It's
No.
not
Just because okay, hold on. If I punch Mikey 8 times and then punch you 4 times, I've still been a dick to both of you. Just because I was more of a dick to Mikey.
Bigger dick to Mikey.
Yeah, just because I was a bigger.
I would agree.
Just because I'm a bigger dick to Mikey doesn't mean that a bad thing hasn't also happened to you.
Okay, so you and I are both driving on the interstate.
Okay,
right?
Racist.
In our Lamborghinis.
Double racist.
We're both in our Lamborghinis. And the speed limit is 65. And a cop catches me doing 90, but catches you doing 150. Should we have the exact same punishment for that?
That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
It has everything to do with what you're talking about.
No. You basically said that I am not allowed to advocate. No. You said that I am not allowed to have a rally where we try to end white abuses, white people being abused by, specifically white people being abused by police because black people have it worse.
I didn't say you couldn't have a rally. I said that it's not.
I said there would be no. I said there would be outrage, and you said because it's not a problem, and it is a problem. It's just not as big a problem, but it is a problem.
It is a problem. Yes, I think he implied that. I don't.
Right.
Maybe he didn't say it, but I think he's saying yes, that is a problem. But there is a much larger problem, which is such.
Right, that's what I thought I said. Maybe I didn't say that, but that's what I thought I said.
But here's the thing: there shouldn't be either it needs to be that as people say, people advocate for their own problems, then absolutely there should be no social repercussions for a bunch of white people saying, hey, we want to end police brutality against white people. But there would say, well, why not just make it about all people who suffer police brutality? Or I mean, if police brutality is affecting everybody, especially anyone who's impoverished, why not make it a movement to end police brutality, not just police brutality against someone of a certain color?
Okay, so if we already know that this is a problem, and we already know that it's a problem for impoverished people, then why isn't everyone else doing something about it?
I don't know. I wish they were.
Okay, so the poor people who happen to be black started to say and do something about it, and now they're being run across the ringer, but nothing is being addressed towards everyone else who hasn't done anything to address the problem. I don't know that we can play Monday morning quarterback and say, well, we should actually do this, this, and this. Well, nothing was being done.
Okay, but Mikey, did any of those black people try being white?
Shit.
Well, and the other interesting thing though is that I think we may be equivocating on identity politics, and Ansgar may have a point as to how many people view it, but I also do see progressive liberals' point, because I think one reason that it's not seen as a bigger issue is because the people who are in the majority don't have the identity that is being targeted. And right. And I think that still isn't necessarily, because that doesn't necessarily go to the point. I think because it's not affecting the majority nearly as much, even if morally we should be saying, well, gee, we should all be egalitarian about this and put ourselves in the other people's shoes, we don't normally do that very well. If we haven't lived those same experiences, we have a harder time connecting with those people. And yes, Mikey, I said those people. I apologize.
I knew it. Everybody take a drink.
Well, I would say it goes deeper than that. People who have lived through those experiences, the moment they get out of them, I would say, easily, and this is just me shooting out random figures, but easily 80 to 90% of those people suddenly forget what it was like. Well, I did it, so anyone can.
I think that does happen. I'm not sure that those numbers are well,
That's
maybe
a big number.
That's a big number. I'm not sure it's necessarily that bad, but I do think it happens. I think you're right. But I think a lot of people also do remember where they came from. I think
a lot of people feel like it's their they've earned the privilege to forget where they came from.
Yeah.
And that's, they feel like I got myself out, so fuck y'all.
All right, I want to change the subject. I'm sorry, but I want to change the subject because there's something going on right now that I want to talk about before I forget. I'm sorry, Mikey. I love you.
Nah, okay. I see how it is. So, shut me down, white man.
There's a question right now on CNN, and it says, how would you convince General Motors to bring production back to the United States? I fucking hate the question.
It's a stupid
How
question.
do you convince General Motors? Please, General Motors, please give us jobs. Please give us money. Please. Please, we worship at the holy altar of your corporation. We bow down to you, General Motors. Please give us jobs. Please. No, fuck you. You bring it back or you lose your fucking license. You're not a corporation in the United States anymore. That's how we solve the issue.
Woo.
Well, and didn't Warren also say that she didn't think automation was a problem? And she didn't think that that was actually the biggest cause of job loss? That strikes me as out of touch.
I hadn't heard that, but...
No, she said that like 5 minutes ago. I saw it on the. I got the captioning working now. Yeah, I got the captioning working.
I mean, I think I see what she's saying because I don't know that it's the biggest reason. It's a big reason, but I don't know that it's the biggest reason. Like I'm saying, I don't know. Like I don't know the numbers. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that. I mean, I'm sure it's a big reason. I don't know that it's the biggest, is what I'm saying. Like I don't know what the main reason is. But I know that one of the big reasons is the fact that CEOs make thousands more % in money than the people that actually do the fucking work. At General Motors tomorrow, at General Motors tomorrow, if no one showed up but the CEO, would any work get done?
Man, they're gonna put out 2 mirrors in that 8-hour shift.
At General Motors tomorrow, if everyone showed up but the CEO, would any work get done? Who's more valuable to the company? Thank you.
Look, I've been steering this corporation in the right direction, so I need.
Oh, here it goes.
And let's not forget that then they'll take their IP and park it in some basement in Sweden or something like that, and say, "Oh well, we had to pay trillions of dollars for the licensing of that intellectual property, so the government actually owes us money this year."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, now the current question is the goal of Sanders' wealth tax plan to tax billionaires out of existence. Well, I hope so. Bye, bitches.
Wow.
You poor motherfuckers with your billions of dollars.
Oh God.
Couldn't go by on $500 million a year. Oh.
Oof.
So you don't buy the O'Reilly argument that of course, with O'Reilly, it's not an argument against. With him, it's more for when he says, "Hey, if you guys tax me too much, I'm just not going to show up to work in the morning." I'm like, and like that's please.
Yeah, well, our schools are overflowing, our bridges and roads are falling apart, and you're worried about your 5th yacht.
That's all it took to get Bill O'Reilly to disappear, is raise his taxes. Oh my God, why wasn't that somebody's platform? God, that's all you had to say.
Absolutely.
Also, and in the 50s, the difference.
Can he take Glenn Beck with him?
He's already gone.
Jesus. Yeah. Now in the 50s, the difference between I think it was the median salary at in the United States and the highest salary in the median salary in a company versus the CEO salary of that same company was, as I recall, 400 times. Now it's several thousand times.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah, 400 times is still quite a lot. But now it's thousands of times.
Every dollar you earn, someone else earns 1,000.
That's wild.
Just think about that for a second, and then tell me that billionaires do anything for me.
They haven't changed a tire. They haven't bagged any groceries. They haven't shown a house.
Mikey, they had to get on their helicopter Thursday afternoon at like 4 o'clock to fly it out to their island so that they could make their tea time Friday morning at 7:30.
I'm being
okay?
I'm being inconsiderate.
You really are.
I'm being inconsiderate. That's
You
on me.
really are.
That's my bad.
I'm not sure I'm quite that extreme. I agree that, I mean, in the 50s we had a 91% marginal tax rate, and that's how we funded getting a single income family could pay for college, could have a car, could have a house, and that's a huge part of it. And we still had the Ford Motor Company, we still had innovation, we still had people getting rich, but it was at a measly 400 times the average income of the workers at the which I don't. It is hard to imagine gassing up the jet. Yeah,
Peasants.
but I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think there's also a historic model for that working well. I think obviously as you start when you get this level of disparity between the bottom earners and the top earners, you end up with people thinking that what happened to Marie Antoinette was,
let them eat cake.
Yeah,
a good idea.
So Biden, Biden
thanks.
just brought up a good point, and I want to give him points because I never do, but he gets one here.
Okay.
One of the things that he has proposed is to raise capital gains taxes to 39.5%. For anyone who doesn't know what a capital gains tax is,
there's a video on it.
Well, I can do this really, 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 really quick. Okay. Let's imagine that I bought this in 1990. No, let's say 1999, and I'm selling it today. In 1999, I bought it for $1. Today, I'm selling it for $10. I made $9 on my capital gain. My capital gain, $9. I'm taxed on that capital gain of $9. I pay a tax on that. Biden is saying that I should pay 39.5% on that gain, on that $9 that I sold for this thing. And capital gains can be anything that's capital. It can be stocks, it can be bonds, it can be art, it can be boats, it can be a house, it can be literally anything that's a thing that's tangible.
No, I have capital gains higher than, say, just the regular income tax rate. Why not just set it to the same income tax rate?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think 39.5 is probably a little low. But I would need to really look at the numbers to be like, yes, it's too low. Just off the top of my head, it sounds. I would like the last time that I looked at capital gains and where I thought they should be. I think I liked it at 60%. But that's been a while.
What is it at?
It also depended a little bit on. I think it was over $5,000. So you're talking about, major prices, not buying this for $1 and selling it for $10. Major purchases, real estate
right
purchases.
Now was will the Warren and Bernie's tax the rich programs demonize rich people?
Good.
So what?
Well,
so
no, because there won't be any left. I think.
Right. Who
go?
gives a shit? There's 400 billionaires. What are they going to do? Cry about it?
Damn. Yeah, I'm definitely not. I mean, I don't like rich people very much, but I'm definitely not quite as.
Well, no.
You're seeming downright conservative compared to.
It's not about rich people. It's not that I don't like them. I don't like how they're hoarding all the money and then bitching at me because I want more scraps than the people around me are getting.
We could take a note from Dungeons and Dragons and just go slay the dragon and take the horde. Just saying.
I finally put up on Twitter today a quote that I've hesitated bringing up.
Eat the rich.
But it's it's one of my favorites.
With ketchup.
It's from Thomas Jefferson. It's from one of his letters, and I don't remember.
It puts the lotion on the rich people.
I think he was writing. No.
Well,
no, but
base the rich.
God, who was the letter to? Anyway,
I love you, Mikey.
Jefferson said, "The tree of liberty is refreshed, must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure." And with everything that's been going on with Ukraine, we can get into the Ukraine-Syria bullshit if you'd like to.
Nothing to see here, folks.
It reminded me. It came into my head because Jefferson talked about a revolution of thought, an idea. He wasn't necessarily talking about shooting people every 20 years, and he liked to call his presidential election, the election of 1800, the revolution of 1800. He referred to it that way several times because he truly felt that if he had lost that election, that the American experiment was over. I don't know that that's true, but that's how he felt. He was a very emotional man. He also took some pretty conservative, unconstitutional steps as president. He closed ports and basically shut down a bunch of businesses over taxation issues. And he also made the Louisiana Purchase and the Western Territory. What was it that he purchased and sent the Lewis and Clark expedition to? What was it called? I forget. But so he took he made some decisions as president that weren't in line with that. And what he said was, there are times that are greater than the men. And just because we hold certain ideals, we have to recognize that there are times that go beyond our ideals. That, hey, normally I would do this thing, but right now, what the fuck is going on has to be addressed to protect the greater union. And Lincoln felt the same way. Lincoln took some very unconstitutional steps, but they were necessary in order to preserve the union because that was more important. And I feel that's why impeachment is imperative today, because we have entered into a situation that our union is in danger. And if you don't think it's in danger, understand that our allies that we just abandoned are turning to Russia. They are turning to Iran, and they are turning to Saudi Arabia to protect them. There will now be an axis of Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. And
it's almost like someone planned this.
And our president, and I'm not making this like
right into the plan.
Right, and I'm not making this up. Like, this is, they're doing this. Like, they've like, this isn't a lie. This isn't some conspiracy I thought up somewhere.
Alternative theory.
Alternative theories. There will be an axis there of those powers, and those powers stand against us. Turkey is in NATO, and Turkey is in NATO because of its strategic position on the continent, because we have nuclear missiles in Turkey since 1959. The Cuban Missile Crisis happened in part because of the nuclear missiles that we have in Turkey.
Right.
And that was 1963, I believe.
Yeah.
So
everybody drink.
We are now giving that up. The president is talking about taking those nuclear missiles out of Turkey. That helps no one but Russia. Well, also Iran and Saudi Arabia, who are now going to become a superpowered alliance across that continent.
We could talk about, I do want to at some point before the night is through, bring up whether or not we need first strike capability from Turkey, which is what they provide, but I'm not sure that we need first strike capability anymore. But before we do, Stuart Bunn has donated, or has given a super chat of $33.76 because like 2 days ago, we were on a stream and I was there and he donated, and I was just like, oh yeah, sure, you don't donate on in time. And it's like, I was going to, and then sure enough, okay, thank you very much for your super chat. We appreciate it. So we can discuss the first, actually I have a couple of things I want to discuss, but if we want to, we can discuss, do we need first strike capability, which is really all the missiles in Turkey give us.
Well, but they do more than that. They're also a projection of our power. And they're also a reason for Russia not to attack. Because the minute that Russia...
Turkey, that's a good point, yeah.
The minute that Russia attacks the United States installations in Turkey, it's an act of war against the United States. And that's very different than just annexing Crimea. So no, I don't know that we need first strike capability anymore. I think if there's a nuclear war, it's going to happen between India and Pakistan. I don't think it's going to happen between the United States and Russia. Because you want to talk about two nations that fucking hate each other and love identity politics, it's India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
China and Hong Kong. Pretty bad.
Well,
no,
is Hong Kong a nation,
is
though? Yeah.
Well, and even if it was, it's not the same. I mean, the people in Hong Kong and China don't want to murder each other. This is about...
They certainly don't want to nuke each other.
It's not Kashmir.
Right,
no, they don't want to murder each other. One
Okay.
will murder
Yeah.
the other.
Right. Well, India and Pakistan would be happiest if there was literally no more India or Pakistan. Like they both they want mutually assured, destruction.
India stand.
Right.
Problem solved.
And
You're welcome.
it's so sad that they've never been able to figure
Yeah,
something out.
Patreon.com, India and Pakistan / Mikey Famine.
You can just drop everything.
Just drop it right there.
Right in that bucket.
You're welcome. I just solved your whole issue you got going.
Right. Yeah. So if there's a nuclear war, it's going to happen between them. I don't think that. I mean, Donald Trump's not going to bomb his best friend.
His bro,
or they're not going to bomb the guy with the PP tape who can, because it takes 18 minutes for the average nuclear missile to land in Russia, which is enough time to post a PP tape to Twitter.
I'm also going to say I don't believe there's a PP tape. I don't actually believe that.
Bro, there is a PP tape.
I don't think there's a PP tape.
I won't fucking argue with you right now. How is there
I really don't.
I think something. I'm sorry, but there is something.
I don't think that there's a PP tape. I think that was, Michael Steele. He was just collecting rumors, right? His report was just a bunch of rumors. It was just Oppo research on Trump. Like, here's something that people are talking about that might exist. And I think that was a Russian plant to say that there was compromat. I think the compromat on Trump is that he's helped launder Russian money since the 1980s.
Oh, that's about. I mean, he's been laundering money like there's no tomorrow. I mean,
that's the compromat.
Are you saying that our good president would do something so illegal and illicit? That I don't buy it.
Bro,
there might be a PP tape, but Trump wouldn't care if there's a PP. He'll just say it's not me. It's David Dennison.
The PP tape, because then someone would see his little PP.
No. The PP
he's gonna deny it. It was photoshopped. It was fake news.
And the tape purportedly shows hookers peeing on a bed that Obama once slept in, not peeing on him. He's not doing the peeing.
They're gonna have that's the part that they don't tell you about the video. He getting peed on. That's his thing.
No, I don't think so. I don't.
How else do you think he gets that color?
That's how he cleanses himself. He's like pee that spray.
Right.
And then he's back to his normal manila envelope.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe
do you see internet?
Tape, but I don't.
Do you see what the DNC debates do to us? We're talking about hookers pissing on Donald Trump to get clean.
Well,
did you see?
That's what he does. You know it in your heart.
To be fair, they've been talking about income inequality for like 30 minutes now. So
I'm just saying.
Oh God. Well, I did want to hit two news stories while we have you guys on, and then if something interesting comes up, we can bail on it and get back into the.
Yeah, if I see something,
chance on the off chance there's something interesting in the debate. Right. Giuliani says he will not comply with a congressional. Okay.
Oh man, this is at first I was totally I'm gonna be honest with you, Prolib. When you first said that Trump is gonna get impeached and he's likely to get removed from office, I honestly thought you were just blowing smoke up your ass. But this just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
I knew that nobody believed me. I'm gonna tell you something else. You can go on my Twitter and verify this. On September 10th,
at Prolib
Show, the September 10th. The day that John Bolton was fired, I christened the hashtag Bolton Bitch Slap. The Bolton Bitch Slap. And I said, the Bolton Bitch Slap is coming. John Bolton is a vengeful, angry motherfucker.
Yes.
And he does not like getting one over on him. And today...
You're not going to say that he's the whistleblower.
No.
Okay.
No. John Bolton hates Trump a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the old school conservatives do, not because of the authoritarian shit, but they just don't like him. They just think he's a dick. Rex Tillerson called him a fucking moron. They just don't like him as a person. They just think he's an idiot and stupid.
Penn
Jillette was one of the best interviews ever. Was when he's like, however bad you think Donald Trump is, he's one of my best friends. He's so much worse.
Right. They just don't like him. And Bolton getting forced out, like he was right on the cusp of getting his dream, which was war with Iran. He's wanted to destroy Iran for 30 years. He was almost there. And the day that he was fired, a leak came out of the White House that said the White House was planning on attacking Iran. That was Trump shitting on John Bolton. And Bolton wants revenge, and it's going to fucking happen. I guarantee it. Bolton will be a big part of bringing him down. Now, to address Rudy Giuliani, whatever. Listen, during the Whitewater, so impeachment investigations are a lot like a federal grand jury. Okay.
Yeah.
A federal grand jury, there's no cross-examination of witnesses. Things can be sealed. But they operate very, very similarly in process. Was it Susan McDougal or Karen McDougal? I forget what her first. Susan McDougal. No, it's Susan McDougal, isn't it?
I thought it was Karen McDougal. I'll look it up.
Maybe it is Karen McDougal. Anyway, during the Whitewater investigation, the Whitewater investigation for the Clintons, she ignored a federal subpoena from a grand jury and she served prison time over it. So there is fucking precedent for an investigation coming out of an impeachment, a subpoena being issued, and someone serving prison time.
It's Susan, you son of a bitch.
It is Susan. Okay.
Who's Karen McDougal?
No, I think you're thinking of Karen. Yeah, right.
That's one of the Kavanaugh people.
Yes, I think you're talking about Karen McDougal, not Susan McDougal. Anyway, Susan McDougal served time for ignoring that subpoena. You can't just ignore federal subpoenas. And I looked up executive privilege, actually, and I have this ready for you. During the Clinton administration, Ken Starr, who ran that administration, told the Clinton administration, quote, absolutely no one is above the law, because Clinton didn't want to hand over documents. Starr said that executive privilege, quote, must give way, and evidence, quote, must be turned over to prosecutors if it is relevant to an investigation. So that is your precedent. Now, executive privilege has rarely gone in front of the Supreme Court. We may see that here. The only other case where it went in front of the Supreme Court, I believe, is United States v. Nixon. The court did hold that there is a qualified privilege, sure. That's where a lot of the executive privilege processes come out of, is that ruling. But regarding requests from Congress, only 2 federal court cases have addressed the merits of executive privilege in such a context, and neither of those cases reached the Supreme Court. So we will see some sort of ruling on it before this is all over, and it will be interesting.
It's going towards a quasi-packed Supreme Court. Which is one.
Sure. The problem is that if the Supreme Court rules, here's the issue the Supreme Court has. If they rule that executive privilege is tantamount, they're ruling that the executive branch is not co-equal. They're ruling that the executive branch is a unitary executive. That will be hard for Clarence Thomas and Justice Roberts to swallow. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh will go right along with it, but I don't believe that Clarence Thomas and Justice Roberts would agree with that.
Him and Boozy and
that's a really good point. They don't want. Well, they'd be kneecapping the judicial branch.
Because that's what I'm saying.
That's the purview to issue those kinds of subpoenas is in fact their purview. They're not going to want to. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know why.
Right. The clause behind executive privilege is that executive privilege exists because the branches are co-equal. If executive privilege is paramount to all other things, then the judicial branch would be handing over its power to the executive. I just don't see Thomas and Roberts going along with that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't.
I think you got a point. Well, then the other problem is, they're the problem is you're going to get an encroachment, because then the president can just say anything is executive privilege, and you can say, well, give us your notes on how you reach that conclusion. Oh, the lawyer who says that everything is executive privilege can't give you the notes because he's got executive privilege.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And executive privilege is not supposed to. it's not supposed to be broad. Like they keep using this term, broad executive privilege. Well, that's executive privilege is supposed to be like part of a sentence. It's not supposed to be literally anything I've ever talked to you about.
It's just advice, really. It's supposed to just be on advice.
Right. I went to lunch with mistress, which will be redacted.
Right.
And then that's when I got the notification that Syria was under attack and That's executive privilege, where you can leave out people who aren't important to what you're speaking on.
Sure. Or to
protect the whole thing.
Right. To protect national security. If Mikey was a CIA agent and had collected information in such a way, and I didn't want my enemies to find out what those sources and methods were, I could exert executive privilege over who Mikey is and how the information was collected, and maybe pieces or parts of the information, but not that Mikey exists, right?
My cover is
claim.
Right. Or not that the information, not that, I guess maybe that Mikey exists, but not that information was handed over. That there's no executive privilege to say, hey, an intelligence.
I sell snow cones in Kiev during the summers. They'll never see me coming.
Executive privilege exists so that everyone knows that the president is the most powerful and biggest guy in the room.
Right. Yeah, that's not what it's about.
I'm the strongest.
The original purpose,
I am the smartest.
The original purpose was advice, was so that people could give advice to the president and know that it's not going to get released. And that, I mean, it was actually more to, and it's. I think the protecting CIA agents has been an expansion that people haven't objected to, but I think that's an expansion over what the original purpose of the privilege was not to protect secrets, but to allow the president to be able to say, okay, how do we, to allow the president to ask for advice on areas that if anybody opened their mouth publicly, they would risk their careers. But they need to be able to speak.
If we bombed Russia, how many people would die anyway? Right? You may not want. Yeah. There was a discussion of how many Russians could we kill with our nuclear bombs? Right. No, I could see that. But the fact that you and I had a meeting in the White House is not executive privilege. It's just that's where you were that day.
But I'm the president, so it's executive privilege, and I don't want to tell you what I talked about. Bye.
Yeah.
Well, and it was never intended to cover committing crimes. I mean, that's just absolutely.
Of course not.
I mean, it wasn't.
Attorney-client privilege.
That's not
Damn it! There goes my entire plan.
If Nicholas was my lawyer, and I went to Nicholas and I said, Nicholas, I want to go into Mikey's house and steal his headphones. Can you help me facilitate that?
I like these.
Then that what I said there to Nicholas is no longer covered by attorney-client privilege because I have asked him to be an accessory in a crime.
These are
so attorney-client privilege goes away. If I went to Nicholas as my lawyer and said, I am the one who went to Mikey's house and stole his headphones, that is protected because I'm simply admitting that I committed a crime to Nicholas, but I've not asked Nicholas to help me commit a crime. That's the attorney-client privilege difference.
And without that privilege, you would not be able to tell your lawyer that which he needs in order to do his job effectively. So, and the privilege is yours. It's not the attorney's. So the attorney can't see that, can't sit there. If it's inconvenient for the attorney to keep the secret, the attorney can't ditch it. That is it's really your right. Privilege is not even, I think, necessarily the appropriate word. I think it's a right to be able to, within the confines of what you just said. Obviously, you can't say that you plan on committing a crime or yada yada.
Right. That's the other thing. I can't go to Nicholas and say, "Hey, you're my lawyer. I want you to know that I plan to steal Mikey's headphones." If Nicholas doesn't report that, then Nicholas would also then be an accessory.
Why does I am always the burglar? I am always the person being stolen from. I hate how I am always the guy in every situation. Ansgar is right above me.
That's identity politics. And
you know
what? Mikey, it's we all know why it is.
The hat protects me.
You have a hat. Well, and he has a bigger hat, so but you have a cap. You're stuck.
In the Constitution,
I don't think he's buying it. I don't think it's
he with the bigger hat.
Dump the stream, Ansgar.
No, I'll tell you what the real
in the
reason is.
Constitution, he with the biggest hat shall never be the victim in hypothetical conversations about crime.
No, the real reason is because Mikey has the best facial hair on the stream, and I'm jealous.
Excuse me. Excuse
just what it is.
me.
Just how that's the truth. Listen.
Oh, that was fighting
Here,
words.
got my new hat. What's up? About 4.5 feet long.
There you go. I like it.
So listen, if the FEC or FCC is listening, if YouTube is listening, if we say anything that appears racist, you can find us on YouTube /GDC. If we are cutting edge political satire and you think we deserve more rotation in the ads, you can find us on /InTimeShow. Yeah.
One thing that is heartening, is that a word? The opposite of disheartening.
Yes.
65.4K people are watching the debate on Facebook right now. And that is dramatically more than the first two debates, which were at like 20 and then like 30. So
That's
I'm
good.
glad at least.
I think that,
Ansgar thinks that means the end of society. I think he doesn't see up less than that. He's like, look at his face. He's not thrilled. This isn't a good thing in his mind.
40,000 Russian bots at least.
I remember the first time I was on your show, we talked about impeachment. And you asked me if impeachment was going to hurt the Democrats. And I think what impeachment has done instead has gotten more people listening. And
I think you're probably right.
I think that, the more involved our society is with politics, the better it will be for all of us in the end. So
we'll see if that involvement goes into the ballot box, though. There's a lot of people who are willing to, be outspoken activists as long as they don't have to leave their keyboard.
Sure. No, I agree. I try to post every couple of days on Twitter to register to vote and to make a plan now. Find 2 people who didn't vote in the last election, help them register and help them make a plan to go vote, because
I speak Russian, so I'm required to register to vote 3 times.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
I remember when I turned 18, I was planning on registering anyways, but there was a guy running for some kind of local office where I grew up, and he was going door to door with his daughter, showing them the process and stuff, and I thought that was very cool. And he talked to me for a good 15 minutes and then said, hey, register to vote. And I told him, I'm planning on going down. Let me handle that for you. And this is what he was doing. Any newly, ready to be registered people that he ran into, he was helping them and basically submitting the paperwork for them to register to vote. It was very freaking cool, And
you're assuming he didn't toss the ones that are from a different party.
Right.
I'm sorry, you said you're voting for whom? Okay, yeah, I'll file that right away. Right away.
Well, the nice thing is it was a local thing, so there wasn't any party politics involved, and I don't even think he even asked at the end. Like, you usually get so can I count on your vote? He didn't even ask that. I think we talked more about registering to vote than we did about his actual election, which was kind of funny. But yeah, he went around registering a bunch of young people to vote as he went door to door to talk to people about the office he was running before. I thought that was really I don't know. I just think that's a kind of a cool little story in politics in general.
That is a cool story.
Okay. Just because I've been asked, Tony, да, я могу говорить русский язык, но я не знаю, как сказать go vote в русский язык, потому что в России он не знает, как сделать.
I heard cock twice.
That's it. You caught everything. I said they don't know how to say go vote in Russian because it's Russia.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Nick is a sleeper cell.
Yeah, well,
right.
it ain't much of a sleeper if I'm speaking Russian in a live stream, but to answer that was to answer. They're actually speaking Russian now in the darn stream. They're using the English alphabet, but they're speaking Russian, which is just always class.
And demonetized.
On the GDC, it's the GDC where they're speaking Russian. I want everybody. If we're gonna
forget all the identity politics shit that we talked about and all the F-bombs we dropped. You speaking Russian? We got our eye on you.
Listen, okay, so listen, if we want to have any Russian discussions, let's have those on the GDC. That's a great place. It's a great debate community. That is where we have our yep. So let's just, if we could all move the Russian guys over there, anything that has to do with subverting the U.S. government, if we could do that on Steve's channel, and then just, everything else, we could just, all
I would
hail,
also like to tell our
corporate
Chinese overlords that anything you may have said about Hong Kong in this stream is not representative of In Time. It is only representative of the GDC.
Which reminds me, I just wanted to say fuck Blizzard.
Yes.
And fuck the NBA.
Okay,
yes.
We're gonna go down. That's it. It's over. It's over. The whole stream has just changed directions.
So I know this is off topic and it's not about the debates. Sorry, guys. I don't fucking care.
It's okay. We can talk about it for a minute.
Just for a quick little second. I still stand with the NBA, and here's why. Their players are still over there.
Yeah, no, I understand. Listen,
let's let our boys come home first.
Let's let them come back and then criticize.
But still, fuck the
let's
NBA.
Make sure all of our black people make it out of China. A bunch of 6'9" dudes running around are not escaping if they're just like, wait, NBA player? Oh, no. Where are you going? This passport doesn't look great right now.
Right.
No. Yes, but still, fuck the NBA.
Let's get our peoples home. And then I guarantee you it's going to be some shit talking. I might be wrong on this, but let's wait till our peoples get home.
I don't know, man.
It will redeem itself.
I don't think the NBA will, but,
Here's the other issue that I have.
Yeah, because the NFL plays in China.
I'm probably every single piece of clothing that I'm wearing was made in China.
You're welcome.
And it's the same with the rest of you.
You're not even Chinese.
And your iPhone. This was made in China. When I got it the other day, I had a little "Made in China" sticker on it, which fell off, of course, because
made in China.
Never mind.
I think it's on this. Is it still on this? No, this is my
to something else.
Remote for my speaker. But we are intimately connected to China through globalization, and the answer is not isolationism, and the answer is not nationalism. And the answer is not closing our borders and closing off. The answer is
tariffs.
Maybe tariffs. Oh. What? If you have something to say, come over here.
The New York sewer system is built by the Chinese.
The New York sewer system is built by the Chinese, as my wife says. Hi, she just got back from New York today. So globalism has been good for us. Having a global economy is good. It's the reason that you have all of these clothes to wear. It's the reason that you have an iPhone. It's the reason that you can buy things that are cheaper because they're made in China. Okay? It has been good for us. But it doesn't mean that things don't need to change. Just because something has been good for us up until now doesn't mean that it has to stay this way forever. We can change things. So
companies can be ethical and still make all the money.
Sure. I've seen people somebody posted the other day, I'm going to shit on Kobe through my iPhone and wearing my Chinese clothes. And, it's like, well, sure. Everything, our global economy exists right now because we can make things really cheap in China.
Right.
I agree with you. Absolutely. Totally 100%. That doesn't mean that we can't fucking change it tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is we can do business with China and not censor Western, speech for them at the same time. We can do both things.
Right.
If we're doing more money in China and if we're not picking needless fights with them, that's the other thing, which is there's not as much they can do in retaliation because then once we're in a complete trade war, what are we going to pull from them?
what pisses me off about what Blizzard did, okay? I don't know that under normal circumstances.
What they did.
What?
What they did. I don't know what they did.
What did Blizzard do?
Oh,
okay.
a lot.
Ansgar, you can answer it better than I can, but
so there was
just
Still, brother and Ansgar, what they done did.
Okay, so this is what happened. So you know what does everyone here know what Hearthstone is?
Yeah.
Yes.
That boring ass card game.
Yeah, it's a card game from Blizzard. Okay, so it's
an amazing card game.
This started probably about 6 to 8 months ago. We started seeing, now there used to be two versions of the game: the Chinese version of the game and the Western version of the game, or the basically the version for the rest of the world, because Chinese has rather strict censorship laws. But they decided that because it was just too difficult, they would begin censoring the cards, art, and descriptions of the cards for even Western audiences. So just make it all in line with Chinese, their censorship laws.
Okay.
So that's the first little bit, and this has happened kind of across a lot of their games. But
that was kind of when I stopped playing, by the way, because it pissed me off.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that?
I don't really want Chinese censorship influencing American art.
Yeah, I mean, why are we placating to the Chinese who are human rights abusers?
Why are you supporting the companies doing that?
That's what I'm saying. That's when I stopped playing.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's
cool.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they were having a big competition, the Hearthstone competition, and the grand champion gets interviewed at the end. Right. Grand champion happens to be from Hong Kong, and he said,
man.
Yeah, and he said, "Free Hong Kong, liberation of our time. Revolution of our time." Right. And Blizzard responded by stealing 2 years of his prize money, banning him for a year, and firing the two casters, like the sportscaster type guys, firing them for like life. They then released a public statement in China saying we will always protect the nobility and the honor of China, and we are incensed and outraged by the statement. Blah 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 blah.
Kissing Beijing's ass.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, honestly, I'd say more. It was like tonguing it, but like putting the tongue inside and moving the tongue around a little bit.
Right. While also reaching around.
Did somebody? I thought we were going to do it. I knew we were going to do a drinking game, but I thought it was going to be based on any number of things, not on how many things can we do that is going to get this channel demonetized. Right. I did not. Yes, if I had known that was going to be the bar, first of all, I wouldn't have agreed. Second of all, I'd have gotten a lot more liquor.
I'm sorry. I should have just said full-on analingus. Go on, Ansgar.
So, and don't forget the reach around that we're giving too.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's a given.
Rusty trombone.
Okay. So, so people got upset. Obviously, people started boycotting Blizzard and things like that. A bunch of their employees actually staged a protest, and two of the company's core values that they actually have it like immortalized in a statue on their campus says think globally and every voice matters. Now they cited rules for how and why this was enforced, but the rules basically say that it is Blizzard's sole discretion that if anyone should say something that should offend a portion of the population or bring Blizzard into disrepute, that they can do basically whatever the fuck they want. So in other words, whatever you say, they can just arbitrarily decide that it is against the rules to say. So,
and I want to make one point clear real quick. I have no problem with the company saying that, but they should never expect me to give them my business.
Right. They have the right to do this. We just don't like that they did.
Absolutely. If a business wants to have that policy, I think they absolutely should have that policy, but fuck them. Go on, Ansgar.
Yeah. So they covered up, they went out to the statue, and they actually, these employees covered up those core values, like taped them over in protest. So the other thing that people have been doing is they've been taking one of Blizzard's characters and turning her into the symbol of Hong Kong Revolution. In Hong Kong, they're using her as a symbol. And the idea
she's an Asian character. Her name is May.
Yeah.
That's why they adopted her. sorry, go on.
Yeah. And they're
Paladins?
please. And so what they're hoping to do is actually get her banned in China by making her the symbol, because it would be financially devastating as one of their Overwatch characters to have a major character banned in China. Which I think that's a brilliant fucking plan.
I
That's
do
really
too,
clever.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really clever.
Yeah. And it's kind
People
of a fuck
have been
you to
drawing her
Blizzard.
like,
Yeah.
right, and people have been drawing her with like the Hong Kong flag and stuff like that. It's been awesome.
It has been amazing. So, Blizzard put out a response that basically said, "Hey, censoring this guy was." Oh, actually, before that, I get ahead. Some Western, there was another Western Hearthstone champion, and the guys held up a sign, saying "Boycott Blizzard, free Hong Kong." They cut away from the broadcast, but they did not levy any punishment against those players whatsoever. Which really shows like the hypocrisy. So anyways, so the president of Blizzard comes out with a statement on Friday so they could avoid the news cycle, basically saying, hey, these bans were absolutely in line with our core values, because if you offend the Chinese, it won't be a welcoming place for Chinese players. And so but we're gonna give in our generosity, we're gonna give him back his prize money and only ban him and the casters for 6 months. So
How gracious.
yeah. I mean, so we should all celebrate, right? We should thank the Blizzard corporate overlords for being willing to give him the money he earned back. So Blizzard has also put out basically statements saying that anybody who kind of repeats this will be punished rather heavily. Now, in the meantime, they've also banned the term Hong Kong in people's battle tags, which is like their online username. They have been issuing 1,000-year bans for people on their forums who try to talk about the Hong Kong situation.
Joke's on you.
1,000-year bans.
Joke's on you. I'll live 2,000 years. Dumbass.
Let's not forget they have canceled one of their major Hearthstone events in fear of mass protests, and they have slammed down on BlizzCon, posting rather draconian rules about what will and will not be allowed in BlizzCon, including any signs with like Hong Kong flag. Oh, they pulled May, that character we were talking about. They pulled her statue from the pre-order. They pulled her down off the store. So they are running scared from this PR basically disaster.
Fuck them.
So that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that was the now how did that come up? Somebody had brought up the
We were
so
talking about Hong
BlizzCon,
Kong.
China or Hong Kong, yeah.
No, about the NBA. We were talking about the NBA.
Well, the NBA, but yeah. So Prolib had said at the beginning that he didn't think anyone was going to mention any of this stuff, and so far he seems to have hit the nail on the head with that one.
Although they are finally talking about gun violence, which it's about goddamn
I
time.
said that. I got one right.
You did.
Yeah. I did the thing. Damn it.
Now,
But
is it true that somebody here on the GDC says that they heard that there was an attempt to mass unsub from Blizzard's Reddit, and that somehow they blocked that?
No, not from Reddit. What happened was there were so many people deleting their accounts that on the battle.net that the system fucked up and was preventing people from deleting their accounts, and a lot of people, I mean, there is some possibility that Blizzard was actually making it as difficult as possible to delete accounts to stem the tide.
It might have just been an authentication server
Yeah,
crashing because everybody was mass deleting. You know?
That's
Everybody
what's
was-
more
yeah.
likely, yeah.
There was a run on the bank.
Yeah.
And remember that Blizzard is a publicly traded company, so all of this affects their stock, which affects their shareholders. Which fuck it, I hope it goes
And
to 5 fucking
Tencent
cents.
has massive stock in Blizzard, which is a Chinese company.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, here's the issue. This is what I wanted to bring up as a tangential point to all of this. I like capitalism. I really do. And people hear that and they say, but you're a leftist. Well, I like capitalism that is strenuously and almost to the point of overly regulated, because that's the only kind of capitalism that's healthy. Capitalism, every fucking step of it has to have regulations on it. Every step of the way. Regulations are your friend. Politicians who want to regulate things are your friend. Regulations are good. And the more you have of them in capitalism, the better it is for you. Look up TIRD. Look it up sometime. TIRD. Those are TILA.
Tequila.
I'm sorry. TRID. TILA.
Is that the
RESPA.
time machine from
No.
Doctor Who?
No.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
TILA and RESPA have to do with how banks are allowed to lend you money and what they're allowed to do and how they're allowed to do it. I&D stand for integrated disclosures. It's a whole bunch of regulations that say when you buy a house, there is a litany of documents that the bank has to give to you to explain how your loan works, to tell you exactly what you need to bring to closing, to decide what an attorney has to oversee. Everything about your buying a house is heavily fucking regulated. And the reason is because when it wasn't, the economy fell a fucking part in 2008. And the Dodd-Frank bill was passed that said, we're not going to do this anymore. And we passed a shit ton of regulations, and we spent trillions of our taxpayer dollars bailing out the banks because the banks were fucking stupid and took bets they shouldn't have taken. That's a whole other conversation. But those regulations all came about because of unfettered capitalism. So if you hear a politician telling you that we need less regulation and regulation is bad, they are taking things from you. They are stealing from you. Don't let them.
I'm actually completely with you. I mean, that's exactly how the progressive movement was born. Is unfettered capitalism was leading to companies with their own private armies, slaughtering people who went on strike, all kinds of horrible things. And that's why there's a progressive movement.
Yeah, the Bull Moose Party, founded by Teddy Roosevelt, is a big part of that. Absolutely. It was a laissez-faire, was how it was described in the what would that have been? 1880s and 1890s, with big steel and big oil and the big railroads. You had Chinese people coming over, dying by the hundreds and thousands. No one knew their names. They were here. They built our transatlantic railroads.
Hey, I hear that undocumented workers in America only they were taking good white people's jobs who would have been happy to build those railroads.
Absolutely. Well, and at the time, a lot of the Irish and Germans agreed with you. That's why the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed, which, by the way, hurt a lot of businesses, because suddenly they were like, well, we don't have anyone to hire anymore. We really liked having people to do this hard work that kills people. Anyway, that's, again, a whole other conversation.
Back when racism wasn't just strictly along, color lines.
Right. That was, well, and
there were grades of racism.
Right. And, it's why the different civil rights acts that have been passed over the years address color and national origin and race. Yeah. Because Mikey, let's say that Mikey and his brother have very different skin tones.
Here it goes.
Okay.
Again.
And Mikey is darker than his brother. Okay. And they both go to get a loan, and Mikey can't, and his brother does. Well, that's not based on his race. That's not based on his national origin, but his color. So that's why the laws are written that way.
And that's why Mikey can't get a loan, man. See,
that's why Mikey can't get a loan.
I'm really sick of y'all oppressing people from Whitelandia. I'm getting sick of it.
Yeah,
because white people, the people of Whitelandia, are really getting sick of your fucking rhetoric. Honestly.
Absolutely,
it's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Absolutely,
sick of you.
I'm sick of you.
All right. Well, just as
it's not true. I love you.
I love you too.
So as a reminder, before I get to another, because there was one other news article I wanted to cover, but as a reminder, because we've had a couple of questions, and we've been going for a little while now. We are covering the live Democratic debates, the fourth Democratic debate. We cannot post it here because while we don't. it's CNN. So if we post it, there's a copyright strike. We don't mind if it hits the GDC, but if it hits in time, it's an issue. So we decided
we decided not to
wouldn't
risk it because
broadcast.
one strike right now, and then we can't live stream.
Yeah, so we cannot air it, but we are watching it, and some of us have it. We're actually listening to it instead of listening to our guests.
Whatever the fuck we're saying.
I don't know who would be so rude as to do that, but and then
Me.
Well, we've worked out. You know, he's Nick's actually paying attention to the broadcast, and I'm paying attention to the guests. You know.
So
Teamwork.
they just brought up a really good question that I think we could have some back and forth, really good debate on. The difference between I support a gun buyback program. I think it's a great way to get guns off the streets. We have too many guns in our society. I support some sort of program where those guns are purchased back. No other people don't. We can talk about that. And also we can talk about the difference between a voluntary buyback and a mandatory buyback. I'm actually in favor of a mandatory buyback, which that might surprise some people, but I am. I want to hear
no one.
I want to hear Ansgar. I think you probably completely disagree with me, right?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead. Let's go.
Sure.
Bring it, bitch.
Sure.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
The
Hold
spice
on.
has arrived.
Hey, man, the last time I said that, I heard. Never mind. I probably shouldn't bring my sex life into this.
No.
So, anyways.
Gross. I have to see both of you on cam together. Gross. Now I can see it. Gross.
Speaking of analingus.
Don't deny our love. Don't deny it.
Oh, God.
I'm imagining it all right now.
Well, I can see that's your choice. That's your choice. Nobody's forcing you to imagine anything.
I'm a creative. I can't help myself. Gross.
Okay, but seriously, let's talk about a gun buyback program. I think it's a good.
No.
good thing.
So, all right. So, here's the thing. I think that there are some values to having weapons that are owned by the populace. I do think that there are some values.
Please detail those things, please.
Well, I want to go.
Well, let him finish first.
Yeah, I can come back to it.
Yeah.
We actually Nick and I did a whole show on this, and we had a very interesting conversation. Now I'm about to be, three against one, and I'm okay with it. But anyways, so I do think that there needs to be ways of limiting the guns getting into the hands of the people that we don't want the hands of. As an example, somebody who's owned guns for, let's say, 50 years, never had an accident, never committed a crime, never had their gun stolen, has always been responsible. I'm not really worried about that person. You know what I mean? Not at all. But there are significant swaths of the public who I am worried about having a gun. So how do we fix that? And I think that we should have a licensing program. And I think the licensing program should, and I don't know how we would implement this, and the exact details aren't worked out. But I think that a starter license would basically be like your average, hunting rifle. Not even a handgun yet, just a hunting rifle. And you would have to own that for a certain amount of time to be, discussed the exact amount. But you'd have to own that for a certain amount of time. Without having any infractions on your license. That includes no safety violations. If your gun is stolen and used in a crime, and you did not have it adequately locked, there's one thing if they somehow cut through your gun safe or cut through your high quality trigger lock, but it's another thing if you just had it completely unsecured. If you had it completely unsecured, stolen, used in a crime, it counts against your license. So you have to prove, have to own this weapon for a certain amount of time, no infractions on the license, and then you can apply for an upgraded license. Each time you apply for a license, even the original, you have to go through a mandatory training program. You have to go through testing just like you would with a vehicle. The next part of it, as you go through the different licenses, you get access to more potentially dangerous weapons. The next part of the licensing program would be a universal background check, and a system put in place that automatically flags infractions, so that we don't have people slipping through the systems like what happened in I think it was like in Texas or something, where a guy was actually flagged by the system where he was not supposed to be able to own guns, but no one bothered to go confiscate the weapons he was no longer legally permitted to own because of mental health issues. And guess what? He shot a place up. So we need some kind of a system that will, if somebody gets, flagged with a mental health issue or a crime, that those flags go to the proper people and, warrants are issued to confiscate those weapons. So we need a universal background check. We need a universal. I know a lot of right-wing people will be pissed off when I say this. We need a gun registry. We need to know who owns what guns and where they are. So that would be my plan. So I am pro gun control and fairly strong gun control. I'm just not pro gun outright banning.
Okay. Here's I like everything that you said. Here's the things that
Is somebody recording this stream? Did we just what? Huh?
No, I like everything that you said. Gun violence is the leading cause of death in young black males in the United States. And it all of the next 6 reasons that young black men die aren't the same as the top.
Right.
Okay.
Identity politics.
I know. My point is that there are too many guns out there.
That'll agree with.
And we need something in place where we get more guns out of the system. And people say, well, then people will use knives. Sure, then people would use knives, but they won't use guns.
It's a lot harder to kill a school filled with children with a knife than it is with an AR. Ansgar's gonna.
Vice President Biden just said something that I saw. He's gotten 2 points from me tonight. That's the most he's gotten in any of these debates. But he brought up another good point, which just flew out of my head. What was it that he said? Shit.
I didn't catch it.
Must have been very poignant and important.
Shit. What'd you say?
Is it fake fan?
Yeah, I know. Fake. I'm definitely not a fan of Biden.
See, they're talking about Harris.
He loves Biden.
I saw it. I read it, and then it went out of my head. Shit. What did he say? Anyway, I don't remember what it was. But my point is that what we have to do is get more guns out of the system. The problem is that there's just too many freaking guns out there. I love the idea of a registry. I know what it was. We need to remove the exemption for gun manufacturers to be sued. If you produce a gun that killed a bunch of people and you are somehow liable for it, you should be able to be sued. Now, proving that a gun manufacturer is liable, I don't know how that would be done. Maybe you could make an argument about ammunition or magazines or something. I believe that the maximum in any magazine for a civilian should be 10. I don't see any reason why civilians need more than 10 rounds in magazine. Maybe, like Ansgar says, you could graduate to that at some point, like going to get, a CDL license or something. Sure,
because
maybe.
Like I said, you have this enthusiast who collects all this stuff. Like I said, who has that gun for 50 fucking years. I don't care if you give him a goddamn minigun. You know what I mean? Because he's just going to shoot it out at his private ranch and whatever.
Sure, or exemptions for like museums and that sort of thing. Sure,
yeah, for sure.
No, that I understand.
The movie industry,
right? Like a curator or somebody who is, maybe there could be a certain license for somebody who is a collector and they've got to meet like way stricter standards. That I'm fine with. But me on the street, why do I need 100-round magazine for what? What do I need that for?
Have you seen the double barrel magazine that goes right onto a pistol and it holds 100 rounds, but you add 100 rounds to just a standard pistol and you can have 100 rounds with it. It's insane.
No, actually there was one part of the plan that I had forgotten, that there would also be gun zoning. In other words, certain weapons would not be allowed to be fired or publicly, out in the open in certain areas. So, for instance, let's say you have your license for a you've owned guns for many years, and you have a fully automatic license, and you want to shoot that out at your ranch out in the middle of nowhere. That's fine, or
Right.
whatever. But it would still be an infraction simply to take it out in the middle of a city, for instance.
Right, to bring it into a public space or something like that.
Right.
Let
So
me-
like all these guys walking around their fucking M4s and M16s and shit like that
Right.
on their backs in like Starbucks, that wouldn't be allowed.
Right.
Why not?
And then I confused Switzerland and Sweden during our thing, and a few people are there like, well, now wait a minute, they don't let just people walk around with guns in Switzerland, and God,
Yeah, and I'm fine. I mean, we have smoking bans in buildings, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we have laws that ban guns?
Listen. I don't know what y'all white folk is talking about. The Second Amendment clearly says I can have my bazooka anywhere I
Right.
want.
And eat it
Right.
too.
You don't
Yeah.
tell me what I can and
I'm
cannot
actually
do
against
with my
open carry.
Constitution.
I'm against open carry in general.
Why? Why?
See, concealed carry makes sense because you're carrying the weapon purely for the purpose of defending yourself. Open carry, there's only one reason to open carry, and it's to intimidate people.
Where's
Yeah.
the distinction? Hold on. Where's the distinction in the Constitution?
It's not
Right.
in the
That would be
Constitution.
my first question. And then my second, I actually think it should be opposite. I don't believe in concealed carry. I think that if you're carrying a weapon, it should always be in the open so everybody knows that you have it.
Yeah, I disagree. When the last I looked at the numbers, places that have concealed carry were far more safe than places that had open carry.
See, I think that is an interesting point. Now, first of all, we already do limit free speech, and you're not allowed to bully people with speech.
Sure.
You're not allowed to. So if carrying a gun would be perceived as an act of intimidation, I would see that it could be grounds for violating. I mean, I hate to agree with Ansgar. I really do. I work really hard to avoid it, but on two points that he just made, having to agree with him is just unpleasant.
Here's my constitutional argument. I think that the 14th Amendment's right to privacy would say that Ansgar is right, that people have a right to keep certain things private. And that could be one thing, because you could say that, oh, if people know that I carry a weapon with me at all times, they may perceive me as being threatening when I'm just trying to defend myself. I think that the 14th Amendment also gives bodily autonomy to people. That's how we came up with Roe v. Wade in the first place. So I think that there is some constitutional validity to that. I'd have to think about it. I have to think about it in constitutional terms for a little bit. But I think that there is more of a constitutional argument for your side, but there's more of a public safety argument on my side. So,
well, and the other thing,
well, no, like I said, if you look at if you look at the states that have open carry versus a concealed carry, concealed carry states tend to have far less gun violence.
Right, and I mean that makes sense to me off the top of my head. Not that I doubt you or anything. I just would want to look at it and see how it's curated and everything. I'm just saying, for me, like on my argument for me, I'm not saying it's defended anywhere. Like for me, it's a public safety thing. Like I want to know why people are carrying, but I think there's a lot of validity to your argument. So
you're saying that where there's laws that allow people to conceal their guns and carry them safely, there's less gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons perhaps less is because if you're in fact, I'd imagine there might be less kinds of violence in general, because I would imagine if you're really worried that anybody on the freeway might have a firearm, you're probably going to be somewhat less likely to get involved in road rage.
Maybe.
Well, there's also this, like, who are you more afraid of? Like, think about the mentality, right? Who are you more afraid of? The kind of guy who wants to just privately keep a weapon just in case, or the kind of guy who needs to show it off.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the kind of guy who insists that everybody see what he's carrying.
Right. See, I think there's a completely different mentality there.
So I lost my point. You kind of jumped in on me, and then I read something in the chat, which I will not say Tony Designs. Ethan, don't you dare read the chat.
Oh, I can't see the chat anyway.
But I think what I was getting towards was this thing where most of the places that have open carry are typically rural states.
I don't know if Florida and Texas are rural.
Texas is mostly rural. It's ginormous. It's a very
well. I mean, by that standard, then California is rural. It's huge, and most of the area is rural.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so is Washington State. I mean, you go 20 miles into Washington State, and no one lives there anymore.
And California has concealed carry, with no open carry.
Same thing with Illinois.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that the people who would perpetrate these mass shootings or who would promote violence towards somebody, they're like, oh, concealed carry. Now I can bring my weapon. Now I'm good because it's a concealed carry state. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the concealed carry thing doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes any sense to me is citizens need to not have guns. And if they want guns, they have to earn the right to obtain and safely use those guns. So yeah, the curator, the guy who's a collector, the guy who's a sports shooter, they will have no problems jumping through all the hoops that the government can install to protect the masses. Because I don't want to go to work in retail and get shot up because someone has some stupid YouTube video they can point to about how they should be able to carry a gun. They don't need it. They're not any of the people that I previously listed. They're just a threat to everyone else.
Well, yeah. Well, we're not. I agree that people should have to jump through hoops to get guns. That's not what we were talking about. What we're talking about though is if we're talking about open carry versus concealed carry, I am far more comfortable with concealed carry than open carry. Open carry, I think, provides a different mentality.
And it's versus, so it's one or the other, which is the only interesting part of in how Ansgar's framing this, because if I agree, if they're both allowed, then your problem, Mikey, makes a bit more sense to me. If one's not allowed, if you don't allow open carry, then you have the problem of it becomes much harder for you to determine who else may be armed. If you decide that you're going to, commit an act of violence, you really have no way whatsoever of knowing whether anyone else is armed. Now, the truth is, if both are permissible, you still really have no way of knowing. But there's a false sense of, well, I don't see any firearms, so I'm probably okay.
But you also know that you have a firearm, so there's just the same mentality that they might have a firearm.
Well, let me point out, like, okay, California, like I said, they have, we have concealed carry laws. You have to jump through hoops to conceal carry, right? Not just anyone can conceal carry. You have to get a special license to conceal carry. But we do not allow at all open carry, right? So the only way you can carry a firearm on your person legally is if you have jumped through all of the hoops to get a concealed carry license. So that's part of what makes it safer, because you have to jump through more hoops to be allowed to carry a gun on your person. The second thing is there is a different attitude behind it. It does mean that less people are going to be legally, at least, carrying weapons on their person. It is less intimidating when you walk into, you've already reduced the amount of, guns being just carried, especially on legally. So when you go walk into a coffee shop, what would you rather see? 8 people who might be armed but probably aren't, or 8 dudes with rifles on their backs?
I'm not walking in that motherfucker. I guarantee you that.
Exactly.
Shit. You got me all the way fucked up.
Right, Mikey would get.
I'm not walking in there to shop.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I don't
purchase anything from that sandwich shop. I don't want nothing from y'all. I'm good. I'll go to fucking Blimpies before I fucking walk in there. I'm good.
Well, let me do two quick things. We did have one set of comments, and I want to get on to something that's going on in the debate because I want to get everyone's opinion. But one comment here that I like, if you regulate companies, how will they screw over the American people? Think about all those poor multi-billionaire CEOs. Won't someone please think of the elite?
You know what? You're right, and I agree with you. I'm so sorry.
We've been really insensitive this whole time. Hey, billionaires. Hey, my bad.
Identity politics. Identity politics.
I identify as a billionaire.
Don't laugh too hard, Prolib. Oh my God, it's
You know, I'm just letting y'all know. I've been keeping this secret inside for so long. I'm just go ahead and come out right now. Hey, y'all. I'm a billionaire.
Yeah, that's Trump did the exact same thing in that deposition in what was it, 2003, when he was like, "I'm as rich as I feel." Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yo, you see this cup? This cup is exclusive. This cup is worth $1 billion. I have eight of these in my cabinet.
But you see, that's why that gets back to the identity. I mean, if it turns out that, you know, you feel like you're cis male, you feel like you're female, you know, you can do that. So if you feel like you should be a billionaire, is that the same? Can I get into a lot of trouble? Yeah. I identify as a billionaire.
Well, what about the lady that identifies as a black lady?
Oh, there is. Oh my God!
Hey, leave Rachel Dolezal out of this.
Who now identifies as a gay man? A gay black man.
Oh my God! I didn't. Really, you can't write this. What was it? Mark Twain said the difference between fiction and nonfiction is that fiction has to make sense.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. The people that you're describing, we have a word for them where I'm from. They're called assholes.
Yes.
And that's the difference between them and somebody who is trans.
For sure.
That's
yeah. All right. So then now they're talking right now about legalizing opioids. Thoughts?
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
Do it.
Legalize it all and regulate
it. Regulate it. Tax
alcohol.
it. It'll be safer.
Nicotine. Yep.
In fact,
Ansgar and I are going to be on the same page on that one.
Yeah. In fact,
what the fuck? I got to drink again? God damn.
In fact, as long as you regulate it and make sure that corporations can't use it to completely fuck us over and abuse us,
right.
Then I am pretty much adults should be able to put whatever the fuck they want in their own bodies. You know.
Yeah, and they only get the rights for what would the study? There was a study that said they needed the rights for like 12 years, I think, to make a profit, and the price can never rise more than 20% over whatever its initial price was, and and there was something else too that was like the total amount earned can't exceed 100% of whatever they put into it.
Right. Yeah.
To research and develop it. So
yep.
Well. Now we're gonna start legally selling every drug under the sun. Well,
yeah, I know.
Well. We had a war. We had a war on drugs and locked up how many people?
Hold on,
now,
I need more caffeine.
Hey, why can't everything be legal? Y'all make me sick.
I just think it's funny. We've been letting corporations drug us up for fucking generations, but somehow only the drugs that got associated with icky people were the ones that got banned.
All right, I've had my nicotine, my caffeine, and my sugar. What were you saying?
Well. They didn't ban McDonald's, but they're trying to ban Juul pods. Well. Look at what we got here.
Yep.
I'm so sick of this bullshit.
So the other question, Pompeo did a speech on being a religious leader, being a Christian leader. That speech, heavily laden with religious imagery, talking about how he reads his Bible every day, he keeps it on his desk, so on and so forth, has been copied to state.gov and has drawn a lot of criticism because it would appear to violate the separation of church and state. Any thoughts on that one?
Okay. Wow, you opened up a can of worms on this one here, Nick. Okay.
81.2K people watching on Facebook.
All right, listen.
Watching in time? Wow.
Yep.
So
We got some serious action.
I want to take you back to pilgrims. Remember
Bring
the
them
pilgrims?
back.
Okay, wait. We can't answer Pompeo without going back to pilgrims.
That's correct.
All right.
So pilgrims were running from a religious oppression. It was very, very important to people in the through the mid 1700s, really, in the United States, that government did not oppress upon their freedom to practice their religion.
Word.
Because 13 colonies desired to become a union. Within those colonies were lots of different religious beliefs. Now, many of them were different aspects of Protestantism. There were Anglicans and Presbyterians and whatever else.
Shakers.
Right. They all wanted to be able to practice independently. So when the Constitution was drafted, it was very, very important for them to say, hey, government, stay out of my religion.
Yeah.
So originally, separation of church and state meant state staying out of religion. Didn't mean the other thing. It became religion staying out of government much, much later. Really not forcibly until the 20th century. Remember that, what is it that's on money?
God we trust.
One nation.
In
Pluribus
God we
unum.
trust. In God we trust, which was
and-
added in the 40s, I think.
Yeah.
40s or 50s, something like that.
Yeah.
And so was One Nation Under God added to the
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance. That happened in the 20th century. That didn't happen back in the day. That's recent.
I listened to Michael Medved's books on tape, and he told me different.
So
Oh,
the notion that government should, or that religion should stay out of government, it really got solidified in like the 60s.
well, I'm not sure. I think Adams, I think Jefferson, I think a number of others did believe in
Yes, they
keeping.
did. I'm talking about precedents and law. Like the Civil Rights Act had a lot to do with saying, well, you can't discriminate on the base of religious preference. Things being codified into laws is what I mean, not the feelings of the Enlightenment. Absolutely. The Enlightenment was atheistic in nature. 100% agree with you. It was a rebuke to the divine. It was saying that we are born.
This is the highest vote.
Yes, that's the highest. It is saying that we are born with freedom, not that we are not that it is given to us by a divine being.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
what you've got is a bunch of old baby boomers that are just old school, like their parents, who believe that we do live in a theocracy, or that we should live in a theocracy. So it's a relatively recent idea. Like our generation, which I'm right on the cusp between Gen X and millennial. I was born in 1984.
You're a millennial. Welcome to the
yeah.
club.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I'm right on the edge. But our generation is really the
Gen
first
X.
generation to start to really rebuke religiosity. Like
True.
my parents are secularists, but my dad doesn't know whether or not he's religious. He's just like, I don't know if I am or not. But a lot of people in that baby boomer generation, if you tell them you're not a Christian, they're like, you're not a Christian? What's wrong with you?
Why aren't you Christian?
Well, because they attach it to morality. And a lot of what Bill Barr said in his speech last week, and Pompeo said in his speech, was about moral values. Well, I have news for you. Laws aren't based on morals. They're based on ethics. Ethics and morals are two very different fucking things. And I don't give a fuck what your morals are. I don't give a fuck what your god or goddess or all of your gods and all of your goddesses tell me what I should do with my life. I decide what I should do with my life. Now, if I act unethically and therefore against a law, I should be prosecuted, but not because a god says so, but because the laws of the land say so. Those are ethics and not morals. So
And those
take
laws
your
of
moral
the land
values
need
and
to
shove them
not
up
be
your religious
based
ass.
on moral from the Bible and places like that.
Wait,
Yeah,
say that again?
And the laws of
Right.
the land need to be based on ethics, not the morality from
Right.
places like the Bible.
Well, and they are. If you talk
Right.
to anybody who's been to law school, they'll tell you, no, laws are based on ethics, not morals. That's a huge part of the law, is that laws aren't moral. You have certain, they call them vice laws, right? Anti-drug laws, anti-sexuality laws. And I'm not talking about like sexual misconduct. I'm talking about like that women can't bear their breasts in public. Those are vice laws. Those are
Yeah.
moral laws. That's why a lot of people have issues with them.
I have
That
huge
they shouldn't be
issues.
laws.
In fact, I don't think there should be laws against nudity at all, but I digress.
Right. Yeah, that it's stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, we base laws on ethics, on community ethics. What we decide is ethical or not ethical, not what we decide is moral or immoral. And it's a very, very important distinction. I will shut up now.
No, I think that's a good.
So, current question: do tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google need to be broken up? Yes.
Yes.
Why not?
Next question.
Of course they do.
I gotta
Yeah,
drink
duh.
again. This is getting annoying.
So does Disney and Marvel. Like the Disney needs to be sliced in like 10 different pieces.
You know, I have
Amazon.
The Disney thing really bugs me because here's the thing. A lot of these companies in general across, gaming, whatever, they used to be owned by artists, run by artists who hired money men to help them make money, and now the money men use the artists as nothing more than a goddamn resource.
Yep.
And
have you not heard of the music industry?
Oh yeah, I know. It's horrible, and that's been way longer in the music industry than it has been these other industries. The other problem is that when you have 8 people at the top, who basically get to make all the creative decisions for the most impactful art, it turns all art into the same bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like superhero movies, but they're all the fucking same. They're all the fucking same. All of them.
For the most part, yeah. Stuff like Blade or Spawn.
Yeah.
Black Panther.
The modern superhero movies are pretty much all the same. Yeah.
Sure.
Black Panther, I mean,
story.
Nothing against Black Panther, but the movie was basically just Black Iron Man.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I'd say it was more yeah, it wasn't more Iron Man because it was about a struggle for power between him and Michael B. Jordan, who Michael B. Jordan is so he's like my favorite actor.
He's so hot. I mean, yeah, good actor. Yep. That's all.
Seriously though, he's like the next generation, man. He's so fucking great.
Don't get me wrong, I liked Black Panther. It felt very samey to the rest of the shit that I've seen. It was like they took a little bit of this, a little bit of that from the other superhero movies and mixed it in. And visually, they're all the same.
Right. Like the fight in Black Panther happened in the middle, and the fight in Iron Man happened at the end because Jeff Bridges had a bigger Iron Man suit.
Right.
It wasn't that Michael B. Jordan had a bigger Black Panther suit.
But
but I mean, I see what you're saying, that they're all very similar. They are. There's an origin story, and then there's the villain. And the origin story is always the best part of all of these movies. Like, you've got the origin story that's great, and then, okay, we're gonna fight something at the end.
And okay, I don't know. It's just if you line, and the thing is, you line up all these superheroes that in their own comic books. I mean, each comic book has its own unique feel and interesting, visuals and these interesting, cool, fun costumes. And you line them all up on the movies, and they all look like they shopped at the same store.
That I wouldn't agree. Doctor Strange, I think, had some incredibly.
I think Doctor Strange is probably the one exception.
No, I disagree. I think that the fight in Ant-Man, when they're both tiny and they're fighting on the train set, was awesome.
But they still, you put them up next to the other superheroes, they all look like they bought their outfit from the same store.
Well, Tony Stark made a lot of them, I think, is the
which is not the way it was the comics.
I know, but it's
okay, no, the problem is it's an excuse for lazy artistic direction.
Oh no, I'm not saying it isn't.
That's
true.
And I am a curmudgeon.
But I also just love superheroes, so I'm biased.
I love superheroes too. In fact, I love them so much that I hate what they've done for them.
I got another confession to make. Also a superhero. All right, there it is.
Yeah.
I put it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Everybody
All right.
knows.
Wow, we are
Favorite-
learning loads about you.
Favorite movie this year, though, so far, Godzilla.
Have
Probably
not
gonna
seen that.
change. Oh, so
Have not seen that. What is my favorite movie so far this year?
I watched Pan's Labyrinth again, and that's my favorite movie of 2019.
it's a good movie. That's a damn good movie.
I haven't seen that yet either.
No,
I gotta go.
I mean,
Could breaking
Game
up
of
big
Thrones.
tech
No,
companies make the spread
we've
of
gone to see, like, 3 movies
disinformation
this year. What are you
worse?
talking about?
I don't know.
We went to go see Endgame. We went to go see.
Was that this year?
Okay. The
Wasn't
question
Late
that
last
Camilla
year.
Harris
Last
is answering right now: could breaking up big tech companies make the spread of disinformation worse? No, because there wouldn't be just one source for everything. No, it would be harder to spread disinformation.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I think that's a false dichotomy because there's never going to be one source for everything.
And by the way, everybody
as long as you have Fox News and CBS and CNN, you will always have a TYT.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that the government could do right now would be to empower independent media, would be to give more grants and federally backed loans to people that want to start independent media companies. And we have to reinstitute the fairness doctrine. It's got to come back.
What was the fairness doctrine again?
Fairness doctrine said that there needed to be truth in news. And it was, in a way, it was not renewed by the Reagan administration and hasn't been renewed since.
Really?
So, Congress now has to renew it. So,
well, and I think also we should probably take out advertising in the news, the public service broadcasting required by OTA broadcasters. But I also think I don't know if you could apply OTA standards to other kinds of media, but I think it should be considered.
Yeah, I'd have to think about there could be First Amendment issues with that. I'd have to think. I mean, if you can require it of a company that's like when a company says, "Hey, come get a loan with us," they have to say what the APR is, what the down payment is. They have to say all of that stuff. So I think you could make an argument there. And advertising, which still I can't advertise a lie to you. I can't say that I don't know, my toenails will cure your cancer or something.
You don't know that it won't.
That's true.
Well, then wait, why'd I buy your toenails? Wait a minute. What was that for?
I have 10 of them.
If you double size your order, we'll send you hair clippings absolutely free.
I'm going to say my toenails are pretty valuable. I'm the only one that can provide them. There's a lot of scarcity in my toenails.
So you're a billionaire too. See how he acted like I was the bad one for coming out as a billionaire? He's been a billionaire this whole time.
Just wait till there are poachers that come into your house for your toenails.
I would like to know. I would like to know how this conversation went to poachers breaking into Prolib's house to clip his toenails and make off with them.
I bet he'll wish he had a gun then. God damn it!
And also,
no, I'd be like, hey, listen, while you're at it, I haven't clipped my fingernails in a while. I want to take those.
Then
It's
we
just
gotta
all
get
like
one of
back. I'll
those-
get a manicure, pedicure.
Then we gotta get one of those
yards.
slow-moving, sad videos, just panning across his feet with the missing toenails.
And it's funny because I'm a huge Second Amendment guy. Like, I'm totally going to use my handgun against the tanks and the drones that the tyrannical government are going to use against me. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a fallacious argument for one reason. We
what
have
are you talking about?
Well, no, hold on. I think about it this way. It's not as if the military are drones, right? Like the idea that the tyrannical government will turn, the government will turn tyrannical and the entire military will just fall in lockstep, I think is kind of silly. They're people too. They're citizens too. They have families too. And yes, some of them will follow the government, but some of them will turn. Some of them will be willing to rebel against the tyrannical government. So the idea that it's just going to be a bunch of yokels, but no, really, the idea that it's going to be just a bunch of yokels against, tanks and planes, I think is I think is a little bit
Okay.
short-sighted.
Here. Humor me. What will you and your community do against one drone?
Well, how about this? What did the Norwegians do against the entire German Empire?
You're sort of obfuscate. Like,
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is
no,
I don't
you're not
have to win.
answering, though.
All I have to do is make it harder on that tyrannical government. I don't have to win.
Bruh, what are you and 100 of your closest friends going to do against one drone?
I don't have to take out the drone. I don't have to win. All I have to do.
Then you're
is
going to die.
No. All I have. There are people right now who escape drone surveillance. All I have to do is make it harder on the tyrannical government. And if they start droning their own civilians, that will already make it more difficult because it's going to damage the United States' reputation on the world stage and get them in trouble with their allies.
There's any reputation.
But if it's
there are a lot of defensive forces that operate that way. There are a lot of defensive forces that sort of operate on that grounds and are reasonably successful in one way or another.
This is what I'm saying. So just like people in the Middle East use gas on people, if they had guns, then that would have saved them from the tyrannical gas from their gun. You don't have a defense against a drone. If a drone is flying 6,000 feet above you, you have no defense.
You don't necessarily have to. That's not the.
But you can't shoot the missile midair, bro. You're going.
But if
to
it's
die.
that easy, then every dictator with a drone would. I mean, take a look at what happened in Iran and not Iran. Oh wow. Yasser Arafat's.
Saudi Arabia.
So yeah.
Saudi Arabia, yeah.
I mean, even with although actually, I'm sorry, that's not. I'm trying to think of right now in the Middle East. Oh God, I must be getting tired. What's the country? No, in Iran, right? Is it Iran where oh wow, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired.
It would mean that the idea that just because you have a drone, that you're going to know who everyone is and be able to take them all out is silly. It doesn't work that way.
That's not what I'm proposing.
But what you're proposing doesn't matter.
Well, let Mikey finish.
So here's the problem. Part of the Second Amendment argument is that these people have formed these militias, and people think that they can upset or defend themselves against a tyrannical government.
Of course.
I'm being hyperbolic because it's funny, because it's ludicrous.
No, it isn't.
The government, you can't stop the government.
You don't have to stop them to oppose them.
Well, let him finish. Let Mikey finish.
So if you don't have to stop them to oppose them, then why do you need the gun?
Because I need a way to oppose them.
That ain't gonna work, which is what I'm saying.
Yes, it will.
Well, so Mikey, I used to be much more on Mikey's side of this, and I've gotten to Ansgar's side, and the reason is because there's a margin. There is a margin, and if the government decides to come at you full bore with everything, and if the military is fully on board, there's nothing you can do. That's true. But what Ansgar's point is, that's almost certainly not going to happen, and there's going to be some degrees between that and just a few rogue elements of the military trying to do something. There's a whole spectrum, and all you can do if you have an armed society is move closer towards a greater chance of success, so long as it's not that worst case. If it's that worst case scenario, you're screwed. But if you can just improve your odds to the point where, what was the country? It wasn't.
Norway was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
And what happened is they did not defeat the Third Reich, but merely by being rebellious and upsetting their supply lines, they delayed the Third Reich from getting a hold of nuclear weapons, from being able to develop nuclear weapons.
What year was that?
That was during the Second World War.
Okay, so in the 40s.
Okay.
Okay.
So and it happens right now in other governments as well. Look look what's happening in Hong Kong. If China decided to wipe them off the map militarily, they could, and there's nothing those people can do. But you know what they can do? They can make things harder for the tyrannical government. They can make things harder on the tyrannical government. And the idea that you can't possibly defend yourself is to assume that the government is going to go in and full bore and just go wipe everyone off the map, and they're not going to do that. They'll be treating the American people as though they are an occupying force, is what a tyrannical government ultimately does. And you can oppose an occupying force.
Here's my issue with the whole argument. While people are defending themselves against a tyrannical government that will probably never attack them anyway, gun violence is still the leading cause of death among young black males in the U.S. And we have to do something.
Which is why I brought it up.
Which is a real problem that we actually have to do something about, instead of planning for an attack by a military that will probably never actually come.
I agree.
It hasn't happened like in Japan banned all the handguns, and it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in the UK. It hasn't happened in Canada. It hasn't happened in Australia. It hasn't happened in any one of the 36 of the 37 industrialized countries.
Hold on. Yeah, industrials. It has happened, just not in recent history.
Well, I mean,
it happened in Norway.
Yeah. I'm just saying it has happened.
They had the worst mass shooting ever.
No, what I'm saying is the government hasn't. You didn't take away the guns and then have the government try to brutally oppress the people. That hasn't happened.
It has happened in almost all these countries, just not in recent history.
Yeah, well, I don't know that anybody's taken guns.
Sure. Let's see. In the present, no. But I'm saying like it has happened, just not in recent history. I mean, one of the I mean, all over the world, pretty much the British would disarm the public and brutally oppress them. So it has happened in all these places.
Yeah, but that's not its own people.
Right. That was colonialism. That was well, I'm talking about a government taking away guns, and then
Britain did it to British people. Britain did it to who ostensibly was the same place, the Irish. They did it to the Scots.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could talk about apartheid. I think that was a big part of apartheid, was making sure that they weren't
China did it to its own people. Japan certainly did it to its own people.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat recently. I'm talking about.
Yeah, like in recent, not so much.
Right.
But
I'm talking about like post-war. I'm talking in the past 80 years.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
I'll
grant that.
But Ansgar, do you honestly believe that the reason that it hasn't happened here is because we have an armed populace?
That's not what I'm saying.
Then why do you still hold to this thing where an armed populace does anything against a tyrannical government?
Well, first of all, they would do something against a tyrannical government. And here's the thing: if you think,
I'm asking, what do they do to them?
They resist. They rebel.
Let's put it at a minimum. They slow it down.
Yes,
they would slow it down. And the question is, would slowing it down be sufficient? And there probably are a set of circumstances under which it would be sufficient. Most circumstances, I don't know. But I do have to believe that there is a difference in what a government could do against an armed population versus a non-armed population.
But the example was from the 40s. The example was from the 40s.
So
yeah, I mean, I think
they didn't have drones in the 40s. They can have 6 kids on laptops in Washington.
Yes, but it doesn't matter. They're countries across the world.
Let me flip it. Let me flip it. So is there no difference then, because it sounds like this is the argument you're making, that there would be no difference whatsoever between a tyrannical U.S. government who decided it wanted to brutally oppress the United States, the citizens of the United States, if they were completely unarmed, versus if every one of them had whatever rifles and handguns they wanted. There would be no difference in the ability of the U.S. government to oppress the people under each of those circumstances. They would be identical.
Given the fact that we have more firearms than people, no.
Well, no, what I'm arguing is two hypotheticals. One where there's no firearms because we have banned all firearms. Nobody has any. Versus,
I answered. My answer is no.
So you don't think there'd be a difference?
No, because we already have more firearms than people. And you don't see,
how does that answer that question?
But you don't see the places that don't have more firearms being oppressed.
But they're not trying. The U.S. government is not trying to oppress us brutally right now. We're talking about in a situation where the government is willing to treat its own people like an occupying force and brutally oppress them. Would an armed population have a better chance than a disarmed population?
Not in 2019, which is why I'm bringing up drones.
Drones don't change anything.
But again, let's just, you just said not in, no. So so what you're saying is, if the population of the United, in modernity, the population of the United States is roughly 300 million people. If the U.S. government today decided it wanted to occupy the entire country, there would be no difference for them. They would be able to do it in the same amount of time, same resources. It would be identical to conquer this country if every one of those 300,000 people had a firearm versus if none of them had one. Those would be identical circumstances.
With the weapons that are available now?
Yes.
I mean, I'm back of the envelope in this. I don't know that they have to be boots on the ground going door to door with this shit.
They absolutely do.
The threat of bombing is enough. The threat of drone strikes are enough. They don't need to come to you door to door because they can literally have a laptop.
How are they going to do it without having? I mean, how are they going to occupy without having an occupying force? We don't have that many drones. Right now, today.
You could submit or you can get drone stroke.
Okay, here's the thing. But how do you know that people are submitting? How do you know if people are submitting or not? Unless you have people there.
Well, and if all 300,000, there aren't enough drones. If all 300,000, again, and I'm just doing this in a binary because I want to explain, because I think what we're talking about is shades of gray in between this. But for the binary state, in both cases, all 300,000 Americans decide, no, we will not submit. Period. We will die first. But in one case, they are all unarmed. In the other case, they are all armed. Is the argument that in both cases it would be equally easy/difficult using modern weapons to conquer that? Now, obliterate them, yeah, you could just use nuclear weapons, but it's not wiping them out, it is conquering them. Would it be identical in both cases? And it seems to me it would be much harder, even with the abilities of the U.S. military, to conquer the U.S. If everybody was armed.
Okay.
And then and then if that's the case, then it's just shades of gray. If half are armed, it's still a little harder. It's not, you might not be, and I think that's Ansgar's only point is it becomes harder. It may not be hard enough to stop, but then again, maybe it is depending on how much will there is. Keep in mind also, people said that about Vietnam. I mean, keep in mind the massive superiority we had against the Vietnamese, and we lost, and we killed them on a scale of 10-1. For every one of our guys, they killed because of that superiority, and we still lost.
Yeah, they demoralized us. They won. They
demoralized us.
That's the thing. You don't have to win militarily to win on the battlefield, so to speak. You know what I mean? The overall war. You think that and here's the thing, there are countries all over the world right now that have rebel forces, some of them are evil, but have rebel forces that drones are all over their asses trying to kill them, and they cannot wipe them out. You think they wouldn't have the same effect here in America? And using drones on our population would not likely have the freezing effect that you think it does. Every time we drop a bomb somewhere in the Middle East trying to get some bad guy, we create 10 more terrorists. You think the same wouldn't be true here?
I mean, we lost 3,000 people on 9/11 and it galvanized the entire nation.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's because those people were others.
No,
you don't think
the moment the government becomes tyrannical, they become the other.
Let's let Mikey finish. I think he's trying to make a point.
So that 3,000 galvanized an entire nation. You don't think a strike on U.S. soil by the U.S. against non-patriots, those liberals, those people, isn't the same thing?
No. I think that the moment they start dropping bombs on the they will become the other. And will some people side with the government? Of course. That happens in any occupation. That happened when the Nazis occupied places. There were people who sided with the Nazis against their own people. So of course there is going to be some people who sympathize with the government. But that doesn't mean that a significant portion of the population won't be galvanized against them.
And back to the original point, because I'm talking about an unarmed populace. It matters not. It might take longer, yes. If that's the point you're trying to make, then yes, it will take longer. But I don't sanction, and I don't support, and I don't trumpet giving civilians things just because this scenario that we just spent way too long talking about is unfeasible. That doesn't, just because it would just make it long, it would take longer in case of a tyrannical government. So therefore, I believe it's okay for this to happen.
And that's not what I said either.
It's not what you said, but it expresses the ideals that imply the things that I'm saying. So you're not saying it, but when people say these things, it gives space for bad shit to happen.
Yeah, I think being realistic and being truthful about tyrannical governments and weapons is important, because when you trot out these tired old arguments that in gun-toting circles have been long debunked.
I live under a tyrannical government.
Okay, would not the same kind of tyrannical government that we're talking about, but hold on. When you trot out the same argument of how about this? When you trot out arguments that, frankly, to me feel like bad arguments, like, the government has tanks, so you couldn't ever possibly oppose them with a gun. What happens is the gun-toting nuts who I oppose to, they dismiss you as, you don't know anything about guns, why should I listen to you? It's the same thing that happens when CNN runs an article with, or I think it was CNN, possible modifications, and they show what is ostensibly a novelty item on the end of a gun. It was the chainsaw bayonet. It was supposed to be the zombie killer that you wouldn't ever actually use on your weapon. It was a novelty item. Or when people hold up the wrong gun and say this AR-15, it allows them to instantly dismiss anything else you have to say about guns. You're better off getting very, very real, very, very factual, very, very informational, and debating the gun statistics and the gun violence statistics than kind of, I don't know. I think it damages the left position, the liberal position on guns.
I don't have a left or a liberal position. I'm not promoting or purporting
to.
Yeah, there you go. That thing. I'm not thatting. I live in my N64 animated cartoon world in my brain. Right?
Fair enough.
How do we fix things? That's where I'm at. We don't, the way that you're speaking doesn't fix things. It supports the way things are.
No.
Well, let him finish.
It doesn't curb the problem that we have now with gun violence. It gives a lane for it because of, a tyrannical government could never, because of this, because we have these many people armed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it sounds to me.
No.
And if that's not what you're saying, then I get you.
Let me go back to me saying, remember my pretty draconian, I would call them fairly on the draconian side, or at least very strong gun regulation laws that I support. My point is, you don't have to make up or dismiss a valid argument to make the argument to even ban guns. You don't need to.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think to sort of put a pin in it, because there's a couple of things that are going on in the debate. But I think
There's a
Ansgar
debate?
is not. Yeah. Well, there's another one. Ansgar is certainly not suggesting
Kill the
arming everybody,
government.
or even for those grounds, suggesting that argument has at least some validity. He can see how it's valid, and that by denying that validity, he thinks it makes it harder to oppose gun control, because your argument sounds like a caricature, whether it is or is not.
Right.
Well, I have something I'd like to say, because I listened for the whole thing. I didn't say anything. I was very
All right.
respectful.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I know. Here's my
Yeah.
issue with Ansgar's argument. It uses a hypothetical to address an actual. We have a problem with gun violence. We must address gun violence. We can't address things with hypotheticals. What if a whole bunch of fucking elephants gain the ability to use guns tomorrow?
Oh,
and
shit.
they steal tanks and bazookas and blow everybody up? I don't fucking know. I know that gun violence is the leading cause of death of young black males in the United States, and we have to fucking fix it. I don't know about your hypotheticals. I don't care. I know that people are dying, and I don't want them to die anymore.
I would
That's
say
that's all I'm going
we
to say.
have to worry about hypotheticals, because if we overcorrect for a problem without thinking about
Ansgar, I think we're going to give him the last word, and we're going to move on. Thank you, though.
Okay.
All right. So the debate is currently discussing. They're currently discussing the assault weapons ban.
Yes, they are. Okay, I do have something that Pete Buttigieg brought up, and it reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up with you guys, because I really want to get your opinion on this. All right, the Supreme Court is made up of 9 people. The way that people are appointed to the Supreme Court is that the president, whoever is in charge, appoints somebody to the Supreme Court. When there is a vacancy, the Senate then confirms that person. It politicizes the court when a Republican puts up a Republican justice in front of a Republican Senate confirmation process. So there is a discussion right now at Yale University to instead make the Supreme Court 15 members, and to have people appointed to the court by 10 members of the court. So 10 people on the court would have to vote in favor of the new appointee. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on that.
I like it. I think removing the partisan bullshit from it is helpful. And that way, at least, I mean, it might take a few generations for it to get rolling in the best format that it could, but I think eventually that lends to a truer court, and a court more concerned with ethics and less concerned with party affiliation. It might take a few years to actually do what it means to.
Right.
And then I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Who would do the nominations?
The court themselves. The members of the court would decide who was nominated and who was appointed. It would the Supreme Court itself would then, and I think it lends a lot of credence to co-equal, because the court itself would make those decisions. The other branches of government would no longer be involved. So the court would be completely independent.
Yeah, the Supreme Court doesn't decide who gets to be a senator, so I don't know why the Senate gets to decide who's on the Senate.
Right. The Supreme Court's not in, well, I would say it doesn't decide who's the Senate Majority Leader, for instance, or the Speaker of the House.
Does that lend itself to possible abuse in, okay, we've got all these, let's say red or blue people, so we're only going to nominate. I mean, not that the president doesn't already do that, but
right. Well, the reason that I think that it would be more fair is that wouldn't be a consideration anymore. Right. The court itself wouldn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. They would just care, hey, since right now there's 9 people, so you'd have to add a person, right? So you'd have to get the court up to 10 in order to appoint the other 5.
Right.
I like it. I have to think more about it in order to say, like, I endorse it.
What if
I like it?
What if more than one person leaves at once? And then,
or if you fall below a quorum,
right? Yeah, you'd have to have some sort of something in there so that, maybe the Senate would confirm somebody or something. No, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I have to really think about it.
Yeah.
Because if 6 people left and they were all Democrat or Republican,
Right,
we already
yeah.
know what the rest of the court is going to be made up of, and that could be a problem.
Sure. And I mean, you know, this might surprise people, but I like a balanced court. I wouldn't want a court of everybody on the left or a court of everybody on the right. I believe in balance in government. I'm a federalist, and I believe that government should be slow in plotting, and new laws should be very rare. And there should be tons of deliberation on everything, and everything should be voted on by everyone a whole bunch of different times. I believe in extremely slow legislation. So I think that's why I like it so much, is that you would expand the court, sure, but the court's been expanded a ton of times. It started with, I want to say there were 4 people on the court when it started, and then it was expanded to 6, and then expanded to 7, and then 8, and then 9. So it hasn't been done in a long time, but
the fellowship of the court.
Right. It's not like the Supreme Court has always had 9 members on it, and they've always been from both parties. That's just not true. That's not how it's always worked.
So just put Gollum in there, and he's he's
Sure.
got the 10th ring,
right?
And then the one ring
Right.
of power.
I like it. I'm a fan of that. What does chat think? Does chat think I'm crazy?
Well, they're talking about it on what. If somebody wants to check out that one, and I can check out the GDC.
Yeah, it sounds like the In Time is still talking about guns in their chat, in our chat.
Well,
yeah.
Well,
I want to be clear about something. I am not in favor of a gun ban. I do not believe in banning guns. I am from a very rural area, and I know of 3 people off the top of my head who use guns to do hunting, and that's how they make their livelihoods. So I don't believe that all guns need to be banned. I'm a fan of extreme restrictions on anything that's not explicitly for hunting, especially handguns. I don't know that civilians need handguns, and anything that, I know assault rifle doesn't exist. I'm not one of those. But anything that could be construed as military grade. So an AR-15, an AK-47, I don't like the idea of
I hunt deer with a 7.62 round. I don't need
sure.
you oppressing my Second
You
Amendment
know, I bunny hunt with my 30-06 because I like to watch them explode.
It's not hunting, it's liberating. I'm liberating those
okay, here's a quick story. So I was like,
deer.
I was like 17 or 18, and a friend of mine, a friend of a friend's, was gifted his grandfather's 12 gauge.
Oh,
and
God.
he cut the stock, so he made it illegal. Yes, and his grandfather had a farm, and there were a bunch of geese, and we got very drunk. I did not do this, but we got very drunk, and my friend and his friend. No, it was not me. I did not fire that. I wasn't gonna have that thing come up and hit me in the fucking face. No.
So you did this?
No, but they were shooting at geese with a sawed-off 12 gauge. They didn't hit it. Thankfully they didn't kill any of them because we were all drunken morons. But yes, they were trying to geese hunt with a sawed-off 12 gauge. So anyone that knows anything about guns knows of course they didn't hit anything, and of course that's completely moronic. But that's what they tried to do. There you go. There's a little story for you.
The only thing we had in the chat that I did see about the judges was if you get 10 judges that are all in the same party, then it's basically all over, and they're all gonna. I'm not sure I necessarily concur with that.
Okay, judges care a lot less about politics than the rest of us. They just do. They just do. They care about politics a lot less than the rest of us do. And if you remove that politicization, I just don't think that politicking would be something they care about. This is what you bought me in New York.
If it's a lifetime appointment, they don't have to worry about it nearly as much. And
okay,
I think that's one reason why. What?
I'm sorry. My wife brought me my souvenir from New York. I will show you in a moment. No, I understand what you're saying. again, that's what I'm saying. I like the idea. I have to think about it. That's a really great point. Maybe you don't make it a lifetime appointment. Maybe then you get a term limit of 10 years or something.
10 years.
I can see that.
I was thinking of making it lifetime because then they don't necessarily have to worry. They can think about what they think. What?
God.
Well, I don't
Okay,
know.
this is such a dumb question. What friendships have you had that would surprise us, and what impact has it had on your you and your beliefs? Like, what is this? A fucking Miss America pageant question?
All right,
Jesus
so
fucking
here's what my wife got me in New York.
Oh,
Oh my God.
That's beautiful.
Batsy is the greatest. Champion.
So
He's my favorite. Maybe they want to know. They're interested in who's Ansgar under the hat.
Under the hat. That's,
You know, if I'm running for president, seriously, I should hope that you have better questions for me than what friendships do I have that would surprise you.
Really, I honestly thought, okay, this is how bad it was. That was such a stupid question. Not to call our live chat stupid, but I thought that was a live chat question to us as opposed to something somebody was asking.
That's actually CNN.
Candidate.
That is actually what
Oh
CNN has asked these candidates. Oh,
by the way, not one question on LGBTQ equality, but they have time for this bullshit.
Oh God!
Just want to throw that out there. No question about trans rights. No question about bathrooms. No question about any of that shit. What friendship have you had that would surprise us? Like we're on the fucking View.
Right? So,
royal contestant number 3, let me tell you. I like long walks on the beach, sipping a milkshake, 2 straws, 1 milkshake. And get the fuck out of here.
I like committing felonies in violation of the Espionage Act with strong men from foreign countries who speak with thick Russian accents and who like to walk around with their shirt
every
off.
day at 3 a.m.
I will tweet so many tweets. They would be the best tweets. They're so magnificent. The most magnificent tweets.
What was it?
Isn't it shitty how you guys already know who I'm talking about?
He called himself like having like perfect wisdom or something like that.
Yeah, in my great. I mean, obviously,
Infinite
it was a line
wisdom
thrown in there to rile people up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
he's dumb. He's dumb.
He's not dumb. That pisses me off more than anything. Hey guys, Donald Trump is not dumb. Donald Trump isn't smart, but he's not dumb.
He is.
He's not dumb. He is not dumb.
Okay.
He is uneducated. He is
Can we agree
ignorant.
that he's probably senile? So
he's senile.
What's the difference?
Yes,
okay.
but he's not. He is not an unintelligent person. He's insane. He
does not remember his education. He is dumb now.
No, he's not dumb. He's not intelligent.
Shit.
By any means. I'm
next
just saying
on
he's
In
not dumb.
Time,
He's
debate. The next debate is Donald Trump dumb.
They tried to sell us that George W. Bush was dumb. Remember, this is the same thing. Oh, George W. Bush was dumb.
Yes, he was.
He's not. No, he's not dumb. He's not smart.
He does not remember anything he's learned.
Okay, but that's not dumb. That's not dumb.
So what's dumb?
The fact that he can't, Mikey. The fact that he can't learn information, or that he's never taken in new information, or that he can't. That doesn't mean he's dumb.
Okay.
He refuses.
I just want to point out that we are literally having a debate over whether or not Donald Trump is dumb, and this is far more substantive than what they're asking potential presidential candidates on fucking CNN.
If you guys
this is how we have to entertain ourselves.
If you guys want to vote Prolib Famine 2020, by all means.
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, actually, just vote blue, no matter who.
What's the old? What was it? The line that what's his face said? He said,
Go Fifi.
If nominated, I will not run, and if elected, I will not serve.
I forget who that was.
That was me.
I know that.
No,
I'd make a terrible president. Terrible. Absolutely.
I think you do. Why? Why do you think you make it terrible? Other than you'd burn down the White House just because authoritarian power. But okay.
Let's see. I would say just one example, the Chinese Hong Kong thing, right? I'd be like, President, executive order, we're going to help those people. But what about our relationships? We're going to help those people.
Yeah. Yeah, and Congress would just be like, no, we're not.
No,
we
yes, we are.
No, we're not. And I think that's one thing that really annoys me as somebody who is, I guess, politically engaged. All of these policies assume, like all of the policies that all of the candidates put forward assume that Congress is going to go along with them. You're not just voting for their policies, you're voting for whether or not they can convince Congress to pass those policies, right?
Fair enough.
Yes.
And that gets lost so much during the season. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, how are you going to get Congress to agree with you? And I think that's why I like Warren so much, is that not all of her policies, but I can see a path forward as to how she would get a lot of that implemented. She's passed legislation. I mean, the Consumer Protection Bureau exists because of Elizabeth Warren. She literally created an arm of the government, and a successful one at that. So I believe that she can. Go ahead.
And that was one that Obama didn't, I think, get enough credit for, which was he was extraordinarily idealistic, but he actually was able. I mean, the fact that Obamacare was passed was
right.
Whatever its faults and whatever, the fact that he successfully got that passed.
Think about it this way. Think about this. This is a plan that was created in a Republican think tank, and a Democratic president got it passed through a Democratic Congress. That is fucking awesome.
Wait, Ansgar, I think he's fucking with me. Am I?
No, I'm serious. Like that is it. Like when you think about it from a political standpoint, like that blows my goddamn mind. Like he took something that Mitt Romney created and took it to Democrats and got Democrats to vote for it. That's it's mind blowing.
Okay, Ethan, I'm gonna list a list of adjectives, and you let me know if you agree that Trump is these things.
Okay.
Okay.
I like it. Let's do it.
Unintelligent.
Yes.
Ignorant.
Yes.
Dense.
Oh, yes.
Brainless.
No.
In his decision making, could they be described as brainless decisions?
I would say more thoughtless.
Thoughtless, yeah, but not brainless.
Mindless.
Most of the time, yeah.
Stupid.
No.
Okay, those are all the definitions for dumb. So 3 out of 5 you said yes to. So dumb.
Okay. All right. No, that's fair. I'll take it. I'll take it on the chin.
I you and I won, and that is a victory.
Okay. I give it to you. Donald Trump is dumb.
Okay. We have officially reached a conclusion here on the In Time show. I also wanted to. So Tony Designs. I'd be an excellent president. Tony, I literally don't care about money. Socially liberal, economically moderate, but believing we need adjustment oversight. The problem. Let's see.
I love you, Tony. I love you so much.
Yeah, Tony. Let's see. I'd vote for me. Oh my God, I am the perfect president. There you go. That's Tony.
I love you, Tony. I love you so much.
A copy of the immigration forms because
people vote for me, though. I will. If people vote for me, I will make the world medieval again. In fact, I will ban all guns and institute mandatory open carry for swords. I will approve a genetic augmentation, but only to look like fantasy races. I will build a wall and I will put catapults on that wall.
If you vote me president, anyone that identifies as an attack helicopter will have to prove it.
If you vote me for president, I'll just vote you for president because fuck you. Don't make me president.
If you elect me president, I'm leaving.
Yeah. You vote me for president, I'm moving to Switzerland. Now
I don't want to be a part of any club that would have me as a member.
Yeah,
I'm elected president. Now what? I've left.
Joke's on you. We elected you president of Switzerland.
You sons of bitches! You double-crossed me again. You people.
All right, listen.
Oh, whoa. What do you mean, you
Listen.
people?
It's been 3 hours and I got to pee, so I'm gonna go do that.
All right. Well, yeah.
So I'll be right back.
Doesn't just pee their pants.
No, I didn't bring my jar.
Unprepared.
Okay, this is definitely gone into more information than I needed territory.
Well, it's technically
horrible
still more substantive than what the candidates are answering at the moment.
Well, and let's see, they've been up for 3 hours, so like probably Elizabeth Warren's going like, why didn't I bring the jar?
Andrew Yang brought jars for everybody in the first row.
Well, Andrew Yang is giving out a 1,000 jars a month.
I would love to argue with you guys about him, probably on another date. But Ethan thinks nothing that he is proposing would ever get through Congress, and I don't care because I want the idea brought up and I want the conversation to change. And maybe in a few more elections, this actually gets addressed, the UBI, which will be addressed, but later on in our lives.
Well, I do think that we need to start experimenting with UBI because I do believe that we will enter a time, maybe in our lifetimes, maybe not, but we will enter a time when automation becomes so incredibly powerful and prevalent that the vast majority of our populace doesn't work. And when that happens, we'll need to have something like universal basic income in place to take care of those people, to make sure that people aren't just, human waste. Yeah, exactly. And
remember the whole poverty thing we were talking about earlier?
Yeah. And so we need to experiment before we actually need it, when we can still make fine-tuned adjustments without, fucking over the entire economy. And so I think it is important to start now experimenting with UBI, get those systems worked out before they become, necessary.
On a slightly different topic, although roughly similar. I guess Fred the Felon just got a shout out by Yang.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, it's like, okay, fine, but who are they gonna? Which of our guests are they gonna give a shout out to next? I mean, Prolib, Mikey, when are they gonna say? I'd like to say, I'd like to give a shout out to Nick and Ansgar. Why didn't Yang do that?
Because that friendship wouldn't surprise people.
Y'all made Fred the Felon famous.
Remind us who he is, because I don't really know, honestly.
He was a trucker who went along for a ride along on Yang. Yang was asking for truckers to come join the. And Fred actually wanted to just sabotage the campaign. He was like, I'm gonna give him shit the whole time. I want to just destroy the campaign from the inside, and then ended up really liking the campaign and sort of really turning around a lot of his ideology. And we actually had him on as a guest. We covered sort of where he came from in terms of his so he was right wing, ostensibly far right wing, depending on how you view it, and is now voting for Yang and is actually on the Yang campaign and campaigning for him and doing all this.
That's awesome.
So we had him on, so you can see the Fred the Felon.
He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that one.
I argue with him on my channel, whatever, the day after you guys had him, or the day that you had him. It was
that's right, because you were in the you hung out with him for like at least an hour afterwards.
Yeah.
Try 3 hours. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's right, because I went to bed and you were still you and Kitty were still talking to him.
Yeah, it was a long night, but a good talk. A long night.
That's awesome.
Mikey really, because he had said some things that were very inflammatory and difficult, and Mikey found a way to really connect with him. And
that was awesome, by the way. I watched that. I watched that later because I had to bounce at some point. But you had just started talking to him. But damn, you did a fantastic job.
It's a battle of attrition. I have to wear you bitches down through erosion. Ansgar, I'm looking at you.
I erode easily.
I'm silly putty. Don't come at me with any kind of warm water.
Oh,
Uh,
terrible.
well, I see that's the thing. I don't have like the
And Dave
massive
McGinnis.
structural support of that hat with the steel rebar that
Yeah,
goes down from the back of the,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
There's a lattice structure inside the cylinder. You don't know.
Well, at least
It's
there's an I-beam going down the I think his spinal column goes
does.
straight up
It
into the
does,
hat, and it's
actually,
just
yeah.
no, it's like that episode of Star Trek where Barclay got contacted by the alien civilization, and he built the giant brain machine in the holodeck so he
Yep.
could think faster and interface with the Enterprise computer, made him the smartest human who's ever existed or whatever.
Who's Barclay?
Reginald
I was gonna,
Barclay. Oh, never mind.
I was
What's
going to
Star
sit there and
Trek?
say I'm really scared that everybody on here knows the episode. It knows exactly
God
what you're
damn it! They're
talking
still
about.
talking about the friend thing. Will you please move on to another? Sorry, I
Oh
just
my
looked over
God.
and they still.
I
have
think this is how they're going to close it out, because this is 3 hours, right? Isn't this the end of the debate?
Yeah,
they're wrapping
That's
it
their
up.
they gotta
closing
be.
fucking question.
So Elizabeth Warren, what are you wearing? Who are you wearing? Who are you wearing
Kitty,
today?
Kitty and David, thanks. You guys are awesome.
I can't. How is this a? These are called debates, people. They're called debates. I mean, I understand that we severely stretched the limits of what we consider a debate in the modern age, especially on YouTube. But this is taking a bit fucking far.
Yeah.
I think they think debates is someone asking someone else questions.
Yeah. I think this is why I like the town halls more. Because you get one candidate and they're just peppered with questions. And I think you find out a lot more about their personality and their positions and policies. This is why, like, the debates, I mean, I like to watch them because I'm a political nerd, but I'm more into the town halls, honestly.
You know, if this is what a debate is, the next like a dating game is going to be literally, somebody going, debate me, bro. And the next thing you see, they're asking each other questions on one of those dating shows.
So if you were going to be
All right.
any Harry Potter character, who would you be?
Yeah, which house do you belong to? Are you a Hufflepuff or a Ravenclaw?
I would
Gryffindor, bro.
I would
Gryffindor.
cast fire
So
spells because I'm fucking hot.
So we have a comment on the GDC. I swear to God, this is the comment. I swear to God, and because there's a super chat tied to it, I have to read the comment.
Sure.
It's
Oh,
actually
God
required.
Yeah.
So I think we should take a minute. This is Mr. P. I think we should take a minute to talk about how great Nick is, handsome, charismatic, fine head of hair. And for $2, or no, £2, sorry, £2 British, shout out to Nick and Ansgar, Mr. P.
Well,
thank you, Master P. I really enjoyed your first album and your third album.
Yeah. No Limit Soldiers gonna let you know.
Dude, oh my God, that album.
Make them say, na na
Na,
na.
na, na, yeah. All right.
Maya Atkinson, I get nothing out of the debates. Yeah, I'm with you. To me, you may as well be watching one of those dog shows.
Yeah, I mean, the debates themselves, I mean, they've never been great. The good debates are the general debates where you have one candidate versus one candidate. They're on opposing side. For those, I promise I won't be on in time because I'll be watching the fuck out of those and live tweeting. But this shit, whatever.
Yeah, well, since this is a waste, I figured I'd come on your show, guys, and hang with you because it's.
No, I'm saying I'm going to have to pay attention to that because that'll actually be about policy, is what I'm saying. This is just about fucking platitude.
This is us just kind of taking the piss out of it all, to be honest.
Right.
Now, Ethan, I heard what you. Don't call my dog Squeaks, Theo.
Is that what's been squeaking in the background? I just was curious.
He has a squeaky toy that he only uses while I stream.
Yes.
Ethan, I don't know if you were aware of this. Donald Trump will be in the next debate.
Don't think so.
Ooh.
Do not think so.
Ooh, I like where your mind is going.
I do not believe that he will be president very much longer. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't have any more champagne. Damn it.
Yep, that's
You
what
got
they
time to buy some.
actually
You got a couple of
closed
weeks.
the debates out with was who's your fucking surprising friend, happy friend time? Tell us
Who's
who
your
you're
pen
friends
pal?
with.
My pen pal. What do you mean?
No,
Well,
I'm just saying that's
that's
what they
essentially
closed
the
the
same-
debates out with. That you're right. That was the final question. That was their big substantive, out is who's your friend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So who would you be surprised that I'm friends with? I'm friends with this Trump doll.
There you go.
This is my new best friend. So
Ouch.
hair to the chief. There you go.
So maybe that's how we should close our stream out. Nick? Who would people be surprised that you're friends with, and how has it changed your beliefs?
Charles Manson. I wasn't really friends with him, but I knew the guy, and I was not happy about it. But I did, unfortunately, have and he had my home address and was sending me angry letters. So that would be at least my pen pal. Nobody would have expected, and that was 5 too few degrees of separation between me and Charles Manson. I was very happy when he passed away.
I want to point something out before I forget. Biden just went up to the edge of the stage because there was some questions tonight about everybody's age. Because Sanders,
Did he
Biden,
fall off?
No, he went up to the edge of the stage and he's down on one knee, shaking hands. He is doing that to show how virulent and strong and young and vibrant he is. By the way,
I'm not on death's door. I promise.
I saw Jimmy, Mr. Atheist, who we all love. He was talking on Twitter the other day about at the town hall. He said, "Oh, there's someone in the town hall that somehow Biden knows." Do you think it almost looks like it was just for television? I'm like, it was just for television.
Bruh.
Politics is show business for ugly people.
Yeah. I like
Which is why we made our nest here.
Exactly. Why do you think I have a political channel? I mean, look at me.
Look at us.
Right.
Two wretches.
Mikey, you're too beautiful for politics.
Yeah, I think you're too sexy.
Yeah.
Speaking of analingus,
I tell myself that every day.
Oh, a question.
And then I go to my
Puff.
retail job.
Puff's got a question. I think actually we're yeah, it's wrapping up. A question for Puff. What about the speculation that Trump may be the first candidate to run again after being impeached? I don't think he would, but
can't run again when you're removed from office.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Trump, guys. Trump has quit everything in his life. He has quit businesses. He has quit marriages. He is a quitter. He
Children.
Quits. He always quits. Trump quitting is the expectation. That's what Trump does. He quits shit.
He quits paying attention mid-tweet.
Right, exactly. No, if once he leaves, he's going to be done. He's going to start his media empire that he wanted to start instead of getting elected in the first place.
Well, I think there may have been a Freudian slip that Tony Designs is pointing out, that you said he's trying to show people how virulent he is, and I believe you.
Oh, is that what I said?
Virile.
I meant virile. Virulent.
Yes.
Yeah, well, virulent too, though. It's a little Freudian slip. You're absolutely correct. Virulent.
Yes. Big ball.
Listen, I've been talking for 3 hours, people. Okay?
Yes.
We've been talking for 3 hours.
About nothing. We've had to insert interesting political discussion where none was to be had. You are all welcome.
Right.
Well, actually, that's the thing, though. I think I'm hoping that people can sit there and say, the debates would have sucked, but we watched in time, and they pretended to cover the debates, which is why it was so much of a better show.
So I was watching this coverage of the debates, and then this black guy and this guy with a top hat yelled about guns for like 45 minutes. Only on in time.
Well, that's why they pay us the big bucks.
Thank you guys for coming on, though. I love you guys. It is always awesome to have you on here, and it does make the debates tolerable.
I really do appreciate you guys having us on from. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Can I shill?
Yes, please. Chill away.
All right.
And
It
Kitty,
looks
if you
like
could get
we're
their
at that.
links in the description, not the description, the chat, while they're.
So
chilling.
this is Zero. Zero is the Wonder Pooch, and he's my best friend. He's my emotional support animal, and I will drop him off the nearest. No, I'm just kidding. But he will be very.
Wow.
He will
Jay,
be very
that turned
sad
dark
if
so
you
quick.
guys. He'll be very sad if you guys don't sub to Progressive Liberal and the Deviants, which is me and Prolib's channels. So come watch us on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Look
9
at him
p.m.
face.
Wow. 8
Oh,
p.m. your time.
I'm Central, but 9
Right.
p.m. Eastern.
Right.
So come hang out with us. Or I mean, a cliff is only about a 45-minute drive.
All right. Well, I guess it's my turn. This is a Trump doll. He's my best friend and my emotional support animal. No. Listen, Mikey said everything that needed to be said. I want to genuinely thank Nick and Ansgar for having us on. I disagree with you guys on stuff, but I value you. And I think it's so important in the political climate that we have and the one that we're about to have to remember that.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we're all on the same side. We might disagree, but we're all in this together. Like we only get to where we're going as one. And please keep that in mind. Please, Ronald Reagan used to say, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And we need more of that. And we need bipartisanship. And we need to remember that government was created to protect and serve us. And that is its two major functions. And everyone that is elected to office works for you. Demand more of them.
I couldn't hear you, Ethan. Can you repeat all of that? I was blocking Ansgar and Nick for not agreeing with me. Because that's how I, as an adult, have conversations with people, is I block people who disagree with me.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had a little bit of a muscle spasm. What was that saying again?
Whoa.
I couldn't hear you. Can you turn it up for me?
No.
Well,
yeah, there you go.
Link's coming. I'm on it, guys. Sorry, I'm late.
I certainly couldn't agree more. I think definitely we are all in this together, unless I make $1 million, in which case y'all are on your own.
Sucks to suck.
I'm taking my million. I'm moving to Beverly Hills, and it was nice knowing you, but don't take it personally. It's $1 million.
Hate the game, not the player.
Okay, enjoy your new war in taxes. Go on.
But thank you guys very much for coming on, and I don't. Ansgar, did you have anything else? I think that's it.
I really do love you guys. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and the differences between us are pale compared to the very many things that we absolutely agree on. Anyway, so.
Racist.
Oh, Jesus.
I knew it would happen.
Okay, you know what? I don't like you anymore, Mikey. I retract everything. No.
That was so Bill. No, not Bill. What's his name? Was like, we're doing it live.
Oh yeah. Fuck it.
Bill
O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly.
Fuck it. I'll write it and we'll do it right.
Like, Ansgar, we're killing the stream now. We're killing the stream. Let's call you, Ray. We're killing the stream.
I'm not mod anymore. I can't post links, so I'll send them to you guys maybe.
So, all right.
We should.
I guess we will go to outro. I guess, right? We have anything
Yes,
left?
sir.
Let's do it.
All right.
Night all. Thank you for joining us.
We'll
Thanks,
do it
guys.
not live. We'll do it not live.
We'll do it not live.